Hello and thank you for joining for tonight's stories. I hope you enjoy. The Devil You Know sequel. Hunger's Legacy. The motel room smelled like mildew and stale cigarette smoke, the kind of odor that seeps into the walls and never truly leaves. Jenna Bowen woke screaming at 3:47 a.m., her throat raw, her body drenched in sweat that reeked of copper and pine needles. Her left hand, the one with only 3 remaining fingers, throbbed with a pain that shouldn't exist. She stared at her mutilated hand in the darkness, her breath coming in ragged gasps. The stump where her index finger had been was glowing. Not metaphorically, not in her imagination. A faint silver luminescence pulsed beneath the scar tissue, rhythmic and deliberate, like a second heartbeat had taken root in her mangled flesh. The glow intensified with each throb, casting strange shadows across the water-stained ceiling. Jenna pressed her good hand against the scar, feeling the unnatural heat radiating through her palm. "No," she whispered. "No, no, no." 3 months. 3 months since the nightmare at Opal Creek. 3 months since she'd watched Sergeant Okonkwo dragged into the darkness, since she'd felt the Wendigo's antler tines pierce her hand and tear her fingers away like ripe fruit. 3 months since Ruiz had poured silver nitrate into her wounds, since the military had carted the creature away in a cage lined with blessed metal. 3 months of therapy that didn't work, of nightmares that felt too real, of waking up with dirt under her fingernails and no memory of leaving her apartment. And now this. The silver glow pulsed brighter, and with it came the whispers. They weren't words exactly, more like the memory of words, the impression of language without sound. Hunger threaded through them, ancient and patient, accompanied by the smell of frozen meat and the distant howl of something that had never been human. The whispers wrapped around Jenna's mind like frost forming on a window, crystallizing into shapes she couldn't quite understand but somehow knew. "Come back," they seemed to say. "Come back to the trees." Jenna stumbled out of bed, her legs unsteady, and made her way to the bathroom. The fluorescent light flickered to life, harsh and unforgiving, revealing the hollows in her cheeks and the dark circles that had become permanent fixtures beneath her eyes. She looked like a woman who hadn't slept in weeks, which was accurate enough. She turned on the cold water and thrust her hand under the stream. The silver glow didn't dim. If anything, it grew brighter, as if the water fed it somehow. Jenna watched in horrified fascination as the luminescence spread, tracing the network of scars up her wrist, mapping her veins like rivers on a topographical chart. "What are you?" she asked her reflection. The woman in the mirror didn't answer. But for just a moment, so brief Jenna almost convinced herself she'd imagined it, her reflection smiled with teeth that were too long and too sharp. Jenna jerked backward, slamming her hip against the sink. When she looked again, her reflection was normal, terrified, exhausted, but normal. She needed to call Ruiz. Marcus Ruiz answered on the 3rd ring, his voice thick with sleep and something else, fear maybe or resignation. "Jenna, do you know what time it is?" "It's back," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Or it never left, I don't know which is worse." There was a long pause on the other end of the line. Jenna could hear him moving, the rustle of sheets, the creak of a mattress. When he spoke again, his voice was clearer, more alert. "Tell me everything." She described the itching, the glowing scars, the whispers. She told him about the dirt under her fingernails that morning, the way she'd found pine needles in her hair despite not having been outside in days. She told him about the reflection, the smile that wasn't hers. "The cage," Ruiz said when she finished. "Something's happened to the cage." "What do you mean?" "I've been tracking it. Military contacts, Black Ops channels. The convoy transporting the Wendigo to the Nevada facility, it vanished 2 days ago, 200 miles from the destination. No wreckage, no bodies, just gone." Jenna felt the blood drain from her face. "That's impossible. That cage was lined with silver, blessed silver, it couldn't." I saw the footage, Ruiz interrupted. Security camera from the transport truck. Jenna, the cage was empty. The silver lining was peeled open from the inside, like something had unzipped it. The room seemed to tilt. Jenna gripped the edge of the bathroom counter, her knuckles white. How is that possible? We weakened it. The silver, the ritual. I don't think we weakened it, Ruiz said quietly. I think we made it stronger. The whispers in Jenna's head intensified, coalescing into something almost like laughter. She pressed her palm against her scarred hand, feeling the silver pulse beat in time with her heart. What do we do? She asked. We find it, Ruiz said, before it finds us, and Jenna, don't look in any mirrors, not until I get there. He hung up before she could ask why. Jenna packed her meager belongings with shaking hands. The duffel bag she'd lived out of since leaving the hospital, the prescription bottles she hadn't touched in weeks, the photograph of her sister that she kept in her wallet even though looking at it hurt too much. The silver glow in her hand had dimmed to a faint shimmer, but she could still feel it there, humming beneath her skin like a live wire. The motel room felt wrong. The shadows in the corners seemed too deep, too hungry. When she passed the mirror on her way to the door, she kept her eyes fixed on the floor, remembering Ruiz's warning. She didn't see the reflection that watched her go, the reflection that stood still while she moved, that smiled with teeth like broken glass. Ruiz arrived at dawn, his pickup truck rattling into the motel parking lot with the sound of a dying engine. He looked worse than Jenna remembered, thinner, grayer, with new lines etched deep into his face. His eyes, when they met hers, held the same haunted quality she'd seen in her own mirror. You felt it too, she said. It wasn't a question. He nodded, his jaw tight. Dreams every night. It's teaching me things, showing me what hunger really means. Teaching you. I know how it thinks now, Ruiz said, his voice hollow. I know what it wants. And Jenna, it's not just hungry for flesh anymore. It's hungry for everything, for connection, for legacy, for the bonds between people so it can chew through them and taste the grief. They loaded her bags into the truck in silence. As they pulled onto the highway, heading west toward Nevada, Jenna finally asked the question that had been burning in her throat since the phone call. The footage, you said you saw something else, something besides the empty cage. Ruiz's hands tightened on the steering wheel. There was writing on the wall of the truck, scratched into the metal. Blood, I think, or something that used to be blood. What did it say? It was in Navajo, Ruiz said. I had it translated. He paused, swallowing hard. It said, it walks between worlds now. The truck's radio crackled with static, and for a moment Jenna thought she heard whispering in the white noise. She reached over and turned it off. Between worlds, she repeated. What does that mean? I don't know, Ruiz admitted. But I know someone who might. There's a woman in Arizona, Dene Navajo. Her grandmother was a medicine woman, and she's been tracking supernatural occurrences in the Southwest for decades. If anyone knows what we're dealing with, it's her. Nashatsosi, Jenna said, remembering the name from Ruiz's research files. The Skinwalker Hunter. The same. She's been warning people about something coming, something that eats the boundaries between what is and what hungers. I thought she was crazy when I first contacted her. Now I'm not so sure. The desert rolled past the windows, red rock and scrub brush giving way to endless sky. Jenna watched the landscape blur, her scarred hand resting in her lap, still pulsing with that faint silver light. It knows we're coming, she said softly. Ruiz didn't answer. He didn't need to. In the rearview mirror, something tall and thin watched them from the back seat, its antlers brushing the ceiling of the cab. But when Jenna turned to look, there was nothing there. Just shadows. Just hunger. Waiting. They stopped for gas at a station outside Flagstaff, the kind of place that existed in the liminal space between civilization and wilderness, where the pumps were old and the attendant watched them with eyes that held no welcome. Jenna filled the tank while Ruiz went inside to buy supplies: water, protein bars, ammunition. The desert air was dry and cold, carrying the scent of sage and distant rain. Jenna leaned against the truck, her scarred hand tucked into her jacket pocket, and stared at the horizon where the mountains rose like broken teeth against the sky. That's when she saw the crows. There were hundreds of them perched on every surface: the power lines, the station's roof, the fence posts stretching into the distance. They were perfectly still, perfectly silent, their black eyes fixed on Jenna with an intensity that made her skin crawl. She'd seen crows behave strangely before. After the incident at Opal Creek, birds had followed her for weeks, watching her from telephone wires and tree branches, their calls sounding almost like words. But this was different. This was organized. This was a message. One crow detached itself from the mass and flew down to land on the pump beside her. It was larger than the others, its feathers iridescent in the morning light, shot through with colors that shouldn't exist in black plumage. It cocked its head and looked at her with eyes that were too human, too knowing. "You're not real," Jenna whispered. "You're just a bird." The crow opened its beak and made a sound that wasn't a caw. It was a word, rough and guttural, formed by a throat that wasn't designed for human speech. "Hungry." Jenna stumbled backward, her heart hammering against her ribs. The crow watched her with what might have been amusement, then took flight, joining the others in the sky. As one, the flock rose and wheeled away toward the mountains, their wings creating a sound like rushing water. "Jenna." She turned to find Ruiz standing in the station's doorway, a bag of supplies in each hand, his face pale. "Did you see?" she started. "I saw," he said. "Get in the truck now." They drove in silence for miles, the only sound the hum of the engine and the whisper of wind through the windows. Finally, Ruiz spoke. "It's evolving," he said. "The silver didn't kill it, it changed it, made it something more. More than a Wendigo." The Navajo have stories about creatures that blur the lines between different types of monsters, skinwalkers that absorb the traits of other predators, things that start as one kind of evil and become something else entirely. Ruiz glanced at her, his eyes serious. "I think that's what happened. I think the Wendigo absorbed something in that cage, something that let it break the rules." "Rules like what?" "Like staying in one world at a time," Ruiz said. "Like needing physical form to hunt, like being bound by the laws of nature." Jenna thought of the glowing scars on her hand, the way the creature seemed to reach across space and time to whisper in her dreams. "It's not bound anymore," she said. "No," Ruiz agreed. "And that's what scares me most. A Wendigo is bad enough, but a Wendigo that can walk between worlds, that can touch us through dreams and reflections and phantom pain." He shook his head. "I don't know if we can kill something like that. I don't know if anyone can." The mountains grew closer, their peaks capped with snow that gleamed like bone in the sunlight. Somewhere in those high places, Jenna knew, the thing that had taken her fingers was waiting, growing stronger, learning. And it was so very, very hungry. They reached Nashatsosi's compound at dusk, the sun bleeding red across the desert as it sank below the horizon. The property was isolated, tucked into a canyon that seemed to exist outside of time, where the modern world felt like a distant memory. The house was traditional Navajo Hogan in design, round and low to the earth, but surrounded by structures that spoke to a life of preparation and paranoia. A workshop overflowed with tools and materials. A greenhouse held plants that Jenna didn't recognize, their leaves silver-veined and strangely luminous in the twilight. And everywhere, on every fence post, every doorway, every window, there were protective symbols painted in white and red and black. Nashatsosi met them at the gate, and Jenna understood immediately why Ruiz had sought her out. The woman radiated competence and danger, her dark eyes sharp and assessing, missing nothing. She was older than Jenna expected, her hair streaked with gray, her face weathered by sun and wind. but her hands were steady, and the rifle she carried looked like an extension of her body. "You're the ones with the Wendigo problem," she said. It wasn't a question. "It's escaped," Ruiz said. "The cage." "I know about the cage," Nasha interrupted. "I've been tracking its movements since the moment it broke free." She turned her gaze on Jenna, and for a moment her eyes widened almost imperceptibly. "You, show me your hand." Jenna hesitated, then pulled her scarred hand from her pocket. The silver glow had intensified as the sun set, and now it cast a faint illumination across Nasha's weathered face. "As I suspected," Nasha murmured. "The binding goes both ways. It touched you and you touched it. The silver in your wounds created a connection, a bridge between your spirit and its hunger." "Can you break it?" Jenna asked. Nasha was silent for a long moment, studying the glowing scars with an expression that Jenna couldn't read. "Perhaps," she said finally, "but it will not be easy, and it will not be painless. Come, we have much to discuss and little time." She turned and walked toward the house, her silhouette black against the darkening sky. Jenna and Ruiz exchanged a glance, then followed. Behind them in the gathering night, something that might have been wind or might have been breathing rustled through the sagebrush. The crows had returned, perched on the fence in a perfect circle, watching with eyes that reflected the first stars. And in the distance, so faint it might have been imagination, Jenna heard the sound of antlers clicking together like the chattering of teeth. The hunt had begun. Inside the hogan, the air was thick with the scent of burning sage and something else. Copper, Jenna realized, and ozone, like the air before a storm. The walls were covered with hides and textiles, each one bearing symbols that seemed to shift and move when viewed from the corner of the eye. Nasha gestured for them to sit on woven rugs near the central fire pit, then busied herself with a pot of tea. When she finally settled across from them, her expression was grave. "What you encountered at Opal Creek was not merely a Wendigo," she said. "Or rather, it was a Wendigo that had begun to change, to evolve." "Into what?" Ruiz asked. "The Dene have stories of the Yi Naldlucia, the Skinwalker, a witch who has committed unspeakable acts to gain the power to transform into animals, to wear their skins and hunt as they hunt." Nasha's eyes grew distant. "But there are older stories, darker stories, of skinwalkers who did not stop at wearing animal skins. Stories of those who learned to wear the skins of monsters." "The Wendigo wore something else," Jenna said, remembering. "When it attacked us it had faces stretched across its body, our faces, the faces of people it had killed." Nasha nodded. It had begun the transformation even then. The Wendigo is a spirit of hunger, yes, but it is also a spirit of consumption. It takes not just flesh but identity, memory, connection. Each victim it consumes makes it stronger, gives it new abilities, new forms to wear. "And the silver cage?" Ruiz asked. "A mistake," Nasha said bluntly. "Silver can harm creatures of darkness, yes, but it can also bind them, fuse them to the places and people they touch. When you trapped that thing in silver, you did not weaken it. You anchored it to the land, to the survivors." She looked at Jenna's glowing hand. "To you." "The psychic connection," Jenna whispered. "The dreams, the phantom pain." "All symptoms of the binding," Nasha confirmed. "It knows you now. It can find you anywhere, reach across any distance. And as it grows stronger, that connection will deepen. Soon, it will be able to do more than whisper in your dreams. Soon, it will be able to wear your skin." Jenna felt ice form in her stomach. "How do we stop it?" "There is a ritual," Nasha said. "An ancient practice known as the Shadow Purge. It requires burning the creature's physical form while simultaneously severing its spiritual connections to its victims." "That sounds complicated," Ruiz said. "It is more than complicated," Nasha said. "It is nearly impossible. The ritual requires the creature to be present, physically present in a place of power. It requires fire blessed by a Hadaleh, a singer of sacred songs, and it requires sacrifice." What kind of sacrifice? Jenna asked. Nasha met her eyes. The severing of the spiritual bonds cannot be done from a distance. Someone must be willing to let the creature take them, to draw it fully into the physical world so that it can be destroyed. And in that moment, as the creature feeds, the bonds must be cut. Cut how? Ruiz asked. With silver, Nasha said. The same silver that created the bond must destroy it. The victim must be willing to die, and the executioner must be willing to kill. Only then will the connection sever, and only then can the creature be truly destroyed. The fire crackled, sending sparks dancing up toward the smoke hole in the roof. Jenna stared at her glowing hand, understanding at last what Nasha was telling them. I'm the connection, she said. I'm the bait. You are the bridge, Nasha corrected. The creature wants you most of all. You survived. You escaped. You wounded it with silver and lived to tell the tale. It will not rest until it has consumed you, until it has taken your face and your memories and your place in the world. Then we use that, Ruiz said, his voice hard. We set a trap, draw it in, destroy it. If it were that simple, the creature would have been destroyed centuries ago, Nasha said. The shadow purge has been attempted only twice in recorded history. Once, it failed. The second time, the Hadala who performed it died along with the skinwalker he destroyed. But it worked, Jenna said. The second time it worked. Nasha nodded slowly. It worked, but the cost, she trailed off, her eyes distant with memory. The cost was everything. Outside, the wind rose suddenly, howling around the hogan like a living thing. The fire flickered and dimmed, and for a moment the temperature in the room dropped so sharply that Jenna could see her breath. It knows we're talking about it, Nasha said, her voice calm despite the sudden chill. It is close now, closer than it has ever been. How close? Ruiz asked, his hand moving toward the gun at his hip. Nasha stood and walked to the door, pulling it open to reveal the night. The stars were brilliant overhead, the Milky Way a river of light across the sky. But there were shadows moving among the sage, tall and thin, with antlers that caught the starlight and reflected it back wrong. Close enough to listen, Nasha said, close enough to hunger. She closed the door and turned back to them, her face grim. We must prepare, she said. The creature will not wait much longer. It has tasted freedom and it wants more, much more. What do we need to do? Jenna asked. First, we must find the others, Nasha said. The other survivors from Opal Creek. The creature is connected to all of you, and we will need every bond we can find if we are to have any chance of success. The others, Ruiz said, his face darkening. Jenna, there's something I haven't told you, something I discovered while tracking the escaped convoy. What? The other survivors, Ruiz said slowly. They're not just hiding anymore, they've found each other. They've formed something, a group. A cult, Nasha finished for him. Yes, I know, I have been watching them, and I fear they may be beyond saving. Jenna felt the world tilt beneath her. A cult? What do you mean, a cult? I mean, Nasha said, her eyes sad, that some of the survivors have come to believe that the Wendigo is not a monster to be destroyed, but a god to be worshipped. They call it the Holy Predator, and they have been feeding it. The whispers in Jenna's head intensified, coalescing into something almost like laughter. She pressed her hands against her ears, but the sound came from inside, from the glowing scars that pulsed in time with her racing heart. Feeding it what? She asked, though she feared she already knew the answer. People, Nasha said. Drifters, the homeless, the forgotten. They bring them to the woods and leave them as offerings. And the Wendigo, it accepts their gifts. It grows stronger with each sacrifice. The fire died completely, plunging the hogan into darkness. In that darkness, Jenna saw faces, dozens of them, hundreds, stretching back through time and forward into futures that hadn't happened yet. All of them hungry, all of them waiting. We have to stop them, she whispered. Yes, Nasha agreed. But first, we must understand them. And that means going to the one place none of us want to go. Where? Ruiz asked. Back, Nasha said. Back to where it all began, back to Opal Creek. The name hung in the darkness like a curse. Jenna thought of the forest, the snow, the antlered thing that had hunted them through the trees. She thought of Sergeant Okonkwo's screams, of the way his face had looked stretched across the creature's chest, still alive, still aware. It's waiting for us there, she said. Yes, Nasha agreed. It has been waiting since the moment it escaped. It knows you will come. It is counting on it. Then let's not disappoint it, Ruiz said, his voice hard as iron. Let's give it exactly what it's waiting for. But as they prepared to leave, as they gathered weapons and supplies and the sacred materials Nasha said they would need, Jenna couldn't shake the feeling that they were walking into a trap. That the Wendigo, no, the thing the Wendigo had become, had planned this from the beginning. That they weren't hunting it at all. It was hunting them. And it was so very, very patient. The drive to Opal Creek took 3 days, through landscapes that grew progressively wilder and more forbidding. They passed through towns that seemed to huddle against the darkness, their inhabitants watching them pass with eyes that held no welcome. They drove through forests where the trees grew too close together, their branches intertwining overhead to create tunnels of shadow that swallowed the sunlight. Jenna spent the hours staring out the window, her scarred hand cradled in her lap, feeling the silver pulse beat in time with the hum of the engine. The connection to the creature was growing stronger with every mile they traveled toward its hunting grounds. She could feel it now, not just as whispers and phantom pains, but as a presence, a vast, hungry intelligence that watched them from somewhere just beyond the edge of perception. It was playing with them. She knew that now. Letting them come closer, letting them believe they had a chance, when all along it was leading them exactly where it wanted them to go. Ruiz drove in silence, his eyes fixed on the road ahead, his hands steady on the wheel. Nasha sat in the back seat, chanting softly in Navajo, her voice creating a protective barrier around them that kept the worst of the creature's influence at bay. But even her power had limits, and Jenna could feel those limits being tested with every passing hour. On the second night, they stopped at a motel on the edge of a town that didn't appear on any map. The building was old, its neon sign flickering vacancy, in letters that seemed to spell something else entirely if viewed from the corner of the eye. The proprietor was a woman with cataracts in both eyes who took their money without speaking and handed them a key attached to a plastic tag shaped like an antler. Coincidence, Ruiz muttered as they climbed the stairs to their rooms. There are no coincidences where this creature is concerned, Nasha said. Only patterns, only hunger. Jenna didn't sleep that night. She lay in the narrow bed, staring at the ceiling, watching the shadows move in ways that shadows shouldn't. The silver glow in her hand had spread up her arm now, tracing the veins beneath her skin like a map of rivers she couldn't read. At 3:47 a.m., the same time she'd woken screaming in the first motel weeks ago, the whispers returned. But they were different now, clearer, more insistent. Come to us, they said. We are waiting, we are hungry, we are family. Jenna sat up, her heart hammering. The voice was wrong. It wasn't the Wendigo's voice, or rather, it wasn't just the Wendigo's voice. There were other voices mixed in, human voices, speaking in unison like a choir. She got out of bed and walked to the window. Outside, in the parking lot, figures stood in a circle around the truck. They were motionless, their faces turned up toward her window, their eyes reflecting the moonlight with an inhuman shine. There were dozens of them, maybe more. They wore robes made of something that looked like burlap but moved like living skin. And in their hands, they held objects that Jenna couldn't quite make out, something round and pale that caught the light like bone. She stepped back from the window, her breath coming in short gasps. Ruiz, she whispered. Nasha, wake up. But when she turned from the window, she found she wasn't alone in the room. A woman stood in the corner, dressed in the same burlap robes as the figures outside. She was older, her hair streaked with gray, her face lined with grief and something else. Devotion, Jenna realized. Religious fervor. "Mrs. Okonkwo," Jenna breathed. The woman smiled and her teeth were filed to points. "Call me Grace," she said. "My husband's name was taken by the Holy One. I have a new name now, a better name." "You're dead," Jenna said. "Ruiz said you slit your wrists," he said. "I offered my blood to the predator," Grace interrupted. "I gave myself to its service, and in return it gave me life, true life, the kind that doesn't end with death." She stepped closer, and Jenna saw that her eyes were wrong. The pupils were vertical slits like a goat's. "It showed me what my husband became. It showed me the glory of his transformation." "Your husband is dead," Jenna said, her voice shaking. "That thing killed him. It wore his face." "It didn't wear his face," Grace said softly. "It became him, and he became it. They are one now, holy and eternal." She reached out and touched Jenna's scarred hand, and the silver glow flared bright enough to illuminate the entire room. "You could join them. You could be part of the family. The predator wants you, Jenna. It wants you more than it has wanted anything in 1,000 years." Jenna jerked her hand away. "Get out." Grace's smile didn't falter. "I will go, but know this, we are waiting for you at Opal Creek. We have prepared a welcome. And when you come, when you finally stand before the Holy One, you will understand. You will see the truth." She turned and walked toward the door but paused with her hand on the knob. "One more thing," she said. "The others, the ones who don't understand yet, the ones who resist, we have been helping them see, helping them understand." "What do you mean?" Grace opened the door, revealing the hallway beyond. Lined up against the walls, bound and gagged, were 3 people Jenna recognized from the Opal Creek incident. Survivors who had been scattered across the country, who had tried to rebuild their lives, who had thought they were safe. "We saved them from themselves," Grace said, "from the lie of normal life. Soon they will thank us. Soon they will join us, and then we will all feast together." She stepped into the hallway and closed the door behind her. Jenna heard the sound of footsteps retreating, then silence. She ran to the door and yanked it open, but the hallway was empty. The survivors were gone. The only evidence that anyone had been there was a smear of blood on the wall and a single pine needle on the carpet. Ruiz and Nasha found her standing in the hallway, shaking. She told them what she'd seen, what Grace had said, and watched their faces grow dark with understanding. "The cult is more organized than I thought," Nasha said. "They have been recruiting, preparing. They know we're coming." "How?" Ruiz asked. "How could they know our route?" "The creature tells them," Nasha said. "Through dreams, through visions. It shows them what it wants them to see, and right now it wants them to see us." "We need to change our plans," Ruiz said. "Find another way to Opal Creek." "There is no other way," Nasha said. "The creature has bound itself to that place, to the land where it was first wounded, first weakened. It will not leave, and we cannot draw it out. We must go to it." "Then we go armed," Ruiz said, "and we go ready." They left the motel as the sun rose, driving through the day without stopping, pushing the truck to its limits. Jenna watched the rearview mirror constantly, expecting to see the cultists following, but the road behind them remained empty. It wasn't until night fell that she realized they had been watching from a different angle entirely. They made camp in a clearing deep in the forest, miles from the nearest road. Nasha said the location was significant, a place where the veil between worlds was thin, where the old power still lingered. She built a fire using sacred herbs and spoke words over it that made the flames burn blue and silver. "This will hide us for a time," she said, "but not forever. The creature knows these woods better than any human. It has hunted here for centuries." They ate in silence, dried meat and flatbread that tasted like ash in Jenna's mouth. She couldn't stop thinking about Grace Okonkwo, about the devotion in her eyes, the certainty that what she served was holy. How did you fight something that could inspire that kind of faith? How did you kill a god? Tell me about the ritual, she said to Nasha. The shadow purge, how does it work? Nasha stirred the fire with a stick, sending sparks spiraling up into the night sky. The ritual has 3 parts, she said. First, the summoning. We must draw the creature fully into the physical world, anchor it to a specific place and time. How do we do that? With bait, Nasha said, her eyes meeting Jenna's. With the thing it wants most. Jenna touched her scarred hand. Me. You, Nasha confirmed. The connection between you is the strongest. If you call, it will come. And then comes the binding. We must trap it, hold it in place while the ritual is performed. This requires silver, more silver than you have ever seen. Silver in the earth, silver in the air, silver in the words we speak. And the third part, Ruiz asked. The severing, Nasha said. The cutting of the bonds. This is the most dangerous part. The creature will fight. It will try to drag its victims into the darkness with it. Someone must be willing to stand in that darkness, to let the creature take them, while another severs the connection with silver. The sacrifice, Jenna said. Yes, Nasha's voice was heavy. The sacrifice, and it must be willing. The bonds cannot be severed by force alone, they must be released. Who performs the severing? Ruiz asked. The Hatala, Nasha said, the singer in this case, me. And who is the sacrifice? Nasha was silent for a long moment. That has not yet been decided, she said, and I pray it will not be necessary. There are other ways, other paths. But her eyes said something different. Her eyes said she already knew who would stand in the darkness, who would let the creature take them. Jenna looked at her scarred hand, at the silver light pulsing beneath her skin, and she knew too. They reached Opal Creek on the morning of the 4th day. The forest was different than Jenna remembered. The trees were taller, their branches reaching toward the sky like grasping fingers. The undergrowth was thick and tangled, choked with thorns that caught at their clothes and drew blood in thin, stinging lines. And the air was wrong. It smelled of copper and cold meat, of something that had been dead for a very long time but refused to lie still. It's been feeding, Nasha said, her voice barely above a whisper. Growing, changing the land to suit its needs. They found the creek first, the same stream where they had made their stand months ago. But the water was different now, thick and dark, moving sluggishly like blood through a dying heart. And in the water, Jenna saw faces. Hundreds of them, thousands, staring up from beneath the surface with eyes that held no life, their mouths open in silent screams. They were the faces of the missing, the lost, the offered. The cult sacrifices, given to the holy predator over months of secret worship. Don't look, Nasha said, pulling Jenna back from the bank. Don't let them see you seeing them. They are part of it now, part of its network, its web. They followed the creek upstream, toward the place where the Wendigo had first emerged from the darkness. The place where Sergeant Okonkwo had died. The place where everything had changed. The clearing was transformed. Where before there had been snow and ice, now there was something else entirely. A structure had been built, not by human hands but by the creature itself, or by its worshippers acting under its direction. It was a cathedral of bone and antler, of frozen meat and twisted wood, rising from the forest floor like a tumor grown wild. And in front of it, waiting, stood the cult. There were more than Jenna had seen at the motel, dozens, perhaps hundreds, arranged in concentric circles around a central altar. They wore their burlap robes, their faces hidden by hoods, but Jenna could feel their eyes on her, hungry and welcoming. At the center of the circle, on the altar, lay something that made Jenna's stomach twist with horror. It was a body, human or once human, but it was wrong. The limbs were too long, the joints bent backward, the skin stretched tight across bones that had grown and reshaped themselves into something monstrous. And the face was Sergeant Okonkwo's, but it was also not. It was stretched, distorted, merged with something else entirely. The vessel, Nasha whispered. The creature has been preparing a new body, a stronger body, one that can exist fully in this world. That's what it wants me for, Jenna realized. It wants to wear me like a skin, to become me. Yes, Nasha said, and if it succeeds, there will be no stopping it. It will be able to walk among humans undetected, to hunt in cities in crowds, to spread its influence like a plague. We have to destroy it, Ruiz said, his hand on his gun. Now, before it's complete. We can't, Nasha said. Not yet. The vessel is not fully formed. If we destroy it now, the creature will simply retreat into the shadows, find another place to grow. We must wait. We must let it come fully into the world and then. And then trap it, Jenna finished. Bind it, sever the connections. Yes. But that means letting it finish, Ruiz said. Letting it become that. It means letting it think it has won, Nasha corrected. Only when it believes itself invincible will it lower its guard. Only then will the shadow purge have a chance of success. They watched from the tree line as the cult began to chant, their voices rising in unison, speaking words that Jenna couldn't understand but somehow recognized. The language of hunger, the language of the void. And as they chanted, the thing on the altar began to move. It was a slow process, like watching ice melt or a flower bloom in time-lapse. The limbs twitched, then stretched. The chest rose and fell with breath that smelled of grave dirt and copper. And the eyes, Sergeant Okonkwo's eyes, but also not, opened and fixed on the sky. The creature sat up. It was bigger than Jenna remembered, bigger than it had been in the cage. The antlers that sprouted from its skull were massive, branching and rebranching until they formed a crown of bone that scraped the sky. And the faces of its victims, stretched across its chest and back and arms, were moving, twitching, screaming silently. But the worst was the center of its chest, where Sergeant Okonkwo's face had been stretched and merged with something else. It was still aware, still conscious, still screaming. Grace, the creature said, and its voice was a chorus, 1,000 voices speaking as one. My wife, come to me. Grace Okonkwo stepped forward from the crowd, and Jenna saw that she was no longer entirely human. Her skin had taken on a grayish cast, her movements were jerky and wrong, and when she smiled, her filed teeth gleamed with hunger. I am here, my love, she said. I am here, Holy One. The others, the creature said, bring them. The cultists dragged forward 3 figures, the survivors Jenna had seen at the motel, bound and gagged, their eyes wide with terror. They were forced to their knees before the altar, and Jenna saw that they were not the only prisoners. There were others, hidden in the shadows of the Bone Cathedral, dozens of people who had been taken from roads and shelters, offered to the creature's hunger. The feast begins, the creature intoned. The family grows, the hunger spreads. It reached out with a hand that was too long, too jointed, and touched Grace Okonkwo's forehead. She shuddered, her body convulsing, and when the spasm passed, she was different, more wrong, more merged. Now, the creature said, turning its 1,000 eyes toward the tree line where Jenna and the others hid. The guest of honor, the one who got away, come to me, Jenna Bowen, come and join the family. It knew they were there, it had always known. Run, Nasha whispered, run now. They ran. The chase through the forest was a nightmare Jenna would never forget. The creature didn't pursue them itself. It sent its worshippers, the cultists who moved with inhuman speed and strength, who seemed to know the woods better than any human should. Jenna ran until her lungs burned, until her legs felt like they would give out beneath her. She ran with Ruiz on one side and Nasha on the other, the old woman keeping pace despite her age, her breath coming in steady rhythm. Behind them, the cultists howled, not like wolves, but like something older, something that had learned to imitate wolves but never quite got it right. This way, Nasha shouted, veering toward a rocky outcropping. There's a cave, sacred ground, they can't follow us there. They scrambled up the rocks, cutting their hands and knees, and tumbled into a narrow opening in the stone. The cave beyond was dark and cold, smelling of bat guano and ancient earth. But as they moved deeper, Jenna felt something change. The connection to the creature dimmed, the silver glow in her hand fading to a faint shimmer. Protected, Nasha gasped, leaning against the wall. This place, the old ones blessed it, long ago. How long will it hold them? Ruiz asked. Not long, Nasha admitted. The creature is strong, stronger than I thought. It will find a way in. Then we need a new plan, Jenna said. We can't just wait here to die. We don't wait, Nasha said. We prepare. The ritual requires materials, sacred herbs, silver, fire, and blood. Whose blood? Mine, Nasha said, and yours and his, she pointed at Ruiz. The connection must be severed from all sides. All bonds must be cut. What about the sacrifice? Jenna asked. Who? That will reveal itself in time, Nasha said. For now we prepare, and we pray. They worked through the night, gathering what they could from the cave and their packs. Nasha drew symbols on the walls with a mixture of crushed herbs and her own blood, singing under her breath in a language that made the air shimmer. Ruiz prepared his weapons, loading silver bullets into his guns, sharpening knives until they could split a hair. And Jenna sat in the darkness, her scarred hand cradled against her chest, feeling the creature's presence press against the cave's protections like a tide against a seawall. It was out there, growing stronger, feeding on its worshippers, on its prisoners, on the fear and devotion of the cult. Soon, it would be strong enough to break through any barrier. Soon, it would come for her. And when it did, she would have to be ready. The attack came at dawn. Jenna woke to the sound of screaming, not human screaming, but something else. The sound of stone tearing, of ancient protections being ripped apart by force and hunger. It's here, Nasha said, rising from her meditation. The final test. They moved to the cave's entrance, weapons ready. Outside, the cultists waited in a semicircle, their hooded faces turned toward the rising sun, and at their center, towering above them all, stood the creature. It was fully formed now, fully present in the world. The antlered crown scraped the sky. The faces on its body screamed and laughed and wept. And in its hands, its terrible, too long hands, it held something that made Jenna's blood run cold. A cage, small, silver-lined, empty. For you, the creature said, its 1,000 voices harmonizing. A gift, a home. You will live inside and I will wear you outside. We will be together. Forever. Never, Jenna said, stepping forward. I will never be part of you. You already are, the creature said. Look at your hand, look at the light. You are mine, Jenna Bowen. You have been mine since the moment I tasted your fear. The silver glow in Jenna's hand flared bright, and with it came pain, agonizing, burning pain that made her cry out and fall to her knees. She could feel the creature's will pressing against her mind, trying to force her to stand, to walk toward it, to submit. Fight it, Nasha shouted. Remember who you are, remember your humanity. But the pain was too much. The connection was too strong. Jenna felt herself rising, her legs moving without her consent, carrying her toward the creature's outstretched hands. No, Ruiz shouted, grabbing her arm. Jenna, fight, don't let it take you. It already has, the creature said, and laughed with 1,000 mouths. And then from the tree line came the sound of engines. They came in trucks and Humvees, armed soldiers pouring from the vehicles with weapons raised. At their head walked a man in a black suit, his face grim, his eyes fixed on the creature with an expression of pure calculation. Commander Vance, Ruiz breathed, the Black Ops bastard from the facility. Stand down, Vance shouted, his voice amplified by a megaphone. This creature is property of the United States government. All personnel stand down and surrender the specimen. The creature turned its 1,000 eyes toward the soldiers, and the temperature dropped 20 degrees in an instant. Frost formed on the trees, on the weapons, on the men's breath. More food, it said, more family. The attack was instantaneous. The cultists surged forward, moving with inhuman speed, their filed teeth tearing into flesh. The soldiers fired, silver bullets tearing through robes and skin, but the cultists didn't fall. They kept coming, kept fighting, kept feeding. "We have to move," Nasha shouted, pulling Jenna back from the chaos. "Now, while it's distracted." "But the ritual." "The ritual can still be performed, but we need the creature contained. We need it anchored." "How?" Nasha looked at the battle raging around them, at the creature towering above the carnage, at the soldiers dying and the cultists feeding. "We let them fight," she said. "We let them weaken it, and then we strike." They retreated into the trees, watching from the shadows as the battle raged. The creature was magnificent in its violence, its antlers tearing through armor, its hands crushing skulls. But the soldiers were numerous, and they were armed with weapons designed specifically for this fight. Silver nets, incendiary rounds, devices that emitted frequencies that made the creature scream. "They're driving it back," Ruiz said, "toward the cave." "They're hurting it," Nasha corrected. "They think they can capture it again, trap it, use it." "Can they?" "No," Nasha said, "but they can weaken it, and that is all we need." The creature roared, a sound that shattered trees and burst eardrums. It lashed out, killing a dozen soldiers in a single blow, but the silver nets were wrapping around its legs, slowing it, dragging it down. "Now," Nasha shouted, "while it's bound." They ran from the trees, toward the creature, toward the chaos. Jenna's hand was glowing so bright it hurt to look at, the connection between her and the creature humming like a plucked string. "What do I do?" she screamed. "Call it," Nasha shouted back. "Call it to you, draw it fully into the world." Jenna stopped, standing in the open, and faced the creature. She raised her scarred hand, the silver light blazing like a star, and she spoke the words that rose unbidden from her throat. "I am here," she shouted. "I am waiting, come to me." The creature's 1,000 eyes fixed on her, and it smiled with 1,000 mouths. "At last," it said. It broke free of the silver nets and surged toward her, moving faster than anything that large should be able to move. The ground shook with its steps. The air froze in its wake. "Now," Nasha screamed, "the ritual now." She began to chant, her voice rising above the chaos, her words creating patterns in the air that glowed with ancient power. Ruiz fired his weapons not at the creature, but at the ground around it, creating a circle of silver fire that trapped it, held it, anchored it. And Jenna stood in the center of it all, her hand raised, the light connecting her to the creature like a bridge of silver flame. "The severing," Nasha shouted. "Someone must sever the bonds." "I will," Ruiz shouted, stepping forward with a silver blade. "No," a voice cried out. Grace Okonkwo emerged from the chaos, her body broken and bleeding, her eyes wild with grief and devotion. "Not my husband, not my love. You will not take him from me again." She threw herself at Ruiz, her filed teeth tearing into his arm, her nails raking his face. They fell together, rolling in the dirt, fighting for the blade. "Jenna," Nasha screamed. "The creature, it's breaking free." Jenna looked up and saw the Wendigo towering above her, its hands reaching down, its 1,000 mouths open in a smile of triumph. "You are mine," it said. And then from the tree line came a voice Jenna recognized. "No," Ruiz said, his voice strong despite his wounds. "She's not." He had broken free of Grace's grip. He had the silver blade, and he was running toward the creature, toward Jenna, toward the light that connected them. "Ruiz, no," Jenna screamed. But he didn't stop. He ran into the circle of silver fire, into the creature's reach, and as the Wendigo turned to face him, he did something Jenna would never forget. He smiled. "I've got something for you," he said. And he reached into his jacket and pulled out a block of C4 explosive. "Ruiz," Jenna screamed. "Run," he shouted back. "Get clear." He didn't wait for her to obey. He shoved her backward out of the circle and turned to face the creature alone. "You want to eat," he said. "Eat this." He stuffed the explosive into the creature's mouth, into the gaping maw of 1,000 teeth, and then he did the unthinkable. He let the creature take him. The Wendigo's hands closed around his body, lifting him, crushing him. But Ruiz had one hand free, one hand holding the detonator. "For Okonkwo," he said, "for all of them." He pressed the button. The explosion was blinding, deafening, a son born and dying in an instant. The shockwave threw Jenna backward, slamming her into a tree, and she felt something tear inside her, something break. The connection. The silver light in her hand flared once, blindingly bright, and then went out. And in the center of the crater where the creature had stood, there was nothing but smoke and ash. The silence after the explosion was absolute. Jenna lay against the tree, her ears ringing, her vision blurred. She couldn't feel her scarred hand anymore, couldn't feel the silver pulse that had been her constant companion for weeks. The connection was gone, severed. But at what cost? She forced herself to her feet, stumbling through the smoke and debris, searching for Ruiz, for Nasha, for anyone. The crater in the center of the clearing was 30 feet across, its edges still smoking, the ground fused to glass by the heat of the explosion. And in the center of it, barely visible through the haze, was a shape. Not Ruiz, something else. Jenna approached slowly, her heart hammering. The shape was moving, twitching, struggling to rise, and as the smoke cleared, she saw what remained of the Wendigo. It was ruined. The antlers were gone, shattered to fragments. The faces on its body were silent, frozen in expressions of shock and pain. And the chest, where Sergeant Okonkwo's face had been stretched and merged, was torn open, revealing something inside that pulsed with dying light. But it wasn't dead. "You," it whispered, its voice a rasp, a shadow of its former power. "You did this." "Ruiz did this," Jenna said, her voice shaking. "He sacrificed himself for all of us." "Sacrifice," the creature repeated, and somehow it laughed, a wet, bubbling sound. "Yes, sacrifice, the oldest magic, the truest power." It tried to rise, failed, collapsed back to the ground. "But you forget, little hunter, I am sacrifice, I am hunger given form, and hunger never dies." It reached out with a hand that was barely more than bone and sinew, and Jenna saw that it was holding something. Something small and silver that glinted in the light. A finger, her finger, the one it had taken months ago. "The connection," it whispered. "Not severed, transferred, changed. I am in you now, in your blood, in your bones, and you are in me." Jenna stumbled backward, horror flooding through her. No, that's not possible. The explosion destroyed my body," the creature agreed. "But not my spirit, not my hunger. I am the land now. I am the wind. I am the whisper in the dark. And I will find you, Jenna Bowen. I will always find you." It closed its hand around the finger, and Jenna felt something shift inside her. A presence, a watching, a hunger that was not her own, stirring in the depths of her mind. "No," she whispered. "Yes," the creature said. "We are one now, forever." And then Nasha was there, standing over the creature with a blade of pure silver in her hand. "Not forever," she said. "Not while I draw breath." She brought the blade down, severing the creature's hand at the wrist. The Wendigo screamed, a sound that shook the earth, and Jenna felt something tear inside her mind, something release. "The ritual," Nasha shouted, "now while it's weakened." She began to chant, her voice rising in the ancient words of the Shadow Purge. The air around them grew heavy, charged with power, and Jenna saw shapes forming in the smoke, spirits, ancestors, the gathered dead come to witness the ending of a monster. "The bonds," Nasha cried, "sever the bonds." Jenna looked at her scarred hand. The silver glow was gone, but the scars remained. The connection was broken, but the doorway remained. She could still feel the creature's presence, faint but present, watching from somewhere just beyond the edge of perception. "How?" she asked. "How do I sever what's already broken?" "Not broken," Nasha said. "Transformed. The explosion didn't destroy the connection, it changed it. The creature's spirit is in you now, and yours is in the remains." Jenna understood. The shadow purge required sacrifice, required someone to stand in the darkness and let the creature take them. But the sacrifice had already been made. Ruiz had given himself to the explosion, to the destruction of the Wendigo's body. And in doing so, he had created a bridge, a connection between the living and the dead, between the physical and the spiritual. "I have to go in," Jenna said, "into the remains, into what's left." "Yes," Nasha said, "and there you must find the core, the heart of its hunger, and you must destroy it." "How?" "With this." Nasha pressed the silver blade into Jenna's hand. "The same silver that created the cage, the same silver that wounded it, the same silver that can end it." Jenna looked at the blade, then at the smoking remains of the creature. "What will happen to me if I go in?" "I don't know," Nasha admitted. "No one has ever survived the shadow purge. No one has ever returned from the heart of the hunger." "Then why send me?" "Because you are the connection," Nasha said. "You are the bridge, and because," she paused, her eyes sad, "because you are already part of it. You have been since the moment it took your fingers. The only way to be free is to go through, to face it, to destroy it from within." Jenna looked at the crater, at the remains of the creature, at the silver blade in her hand. She thought of Ruiz, of his sacrifice, of the smile on his face as he faced the end. She thought of Sergeant Okonkwo, of his wife Grace, of all the victims the Wendigo had taken over the years. And she thought of herself, of the life she had lost, the peace she would never know, the hunger that would always be there waiting. "I'm ready," she said. She stepped into the crater. The world changed. One moment, Jenna was standing in the smoking ruins of a forest clearing. The next, she was somewhere else entirely. It was dark, not the darkness of night, but something deeper. The darkness of absence, of void, of hunger so complete it had consumed all light. And in that darkness she could feel the Wendigo's presence, not as a physical thing, but as a vast, endless appetite. A mouth that had no bottom, a stomach that had no end. "Welcome home," the creature's voice whispered, surrounding her, coming from everywhere and nowhere. "I have been waiting for you." "I'm not home," Jenna said, her voice steady despite her fear. "I'm here to end you." "End me?" The voice laughed, a sound like breaking ice. "You cannot end hunger, little hunter. Hunger is eternal. Hunger is the first truth, the last truth, the only truth." "Maybe," Jenna said, "but you are not hunger, you are just a mouth, a thing that eats, and mouths can be closed." She raised the silver blade, and in the darkness, it glowed with a light that shouldn't exist. The light of the sacred, of the blessed, of the power that had created the world and could uncreate monsters. "You think your little knife can harm me?" the creature asked. "You think silver can kill what has no body?" "No," Jenna said, "but I think it can find your heart." She moved forward into the darkness, following the pulse of hunger that beat like a drum in the void. The Wendigo's presence surrounded her, pressing against her mind, trying to make her stop, turn back, submit. But she kept walking. The darkness began to change. Shapes formed in the void, memories, she realized. The creature's memories, its victims. She saw forests of ancient trees covered in snow that had never melted. She saw villages of people who had starved, who had turned to dark magic to survive, who had become something else entirely. She saw centuries of hunger, of feeding, of growth. And she saw herself. Not as she was now, but as the creature saw her. A light in the darkness, a warmth in the cold, a taste that it had sampled but never fully consumed, the one that got away. "You fascinate me," the creature whispered. "You resist, you fight, you survive. No one has ever survived me. No one has ever escaped." Until now, Jenna said. Until now, the creature agreed. But you haven't escaped, have you? You're here in my heart, in my home, and here you will stay, forever. The darkness solidified around her, becoming walls of frozen meat and bone. She was in a chamber now, a cathedral of hunger, and at its center was a throne. And on the throne sat Ruiz. He looked wrong. His body was there intact, but his eyes were the Wendigos, silver and black and endless. Ruiz, Jenna whispered. He is part of me now, the creature said, its voice coming from Ruiz's mouth. As you will be, as all will be in time. No, Jenna said, her voice breaking. You can't have him, you can't have any of them. I already do, the creature said. Look. The walls of the chamber shifted, revealing faces. Hundreds of them. Thousands. All the victims the Wendigo had taken over the centuries, their souls trapped in its hunger, feeding it, powering it, becoming part of its endless appetite. She saw Sergeant Okonkwo, his face stretched and merged with the creature's form. She saw Grace, her devotion turned to fuel for the monster she worshipped. She saw soldiers and civilians, ancient and modern, all of them screaming silently in the dark. And she saw herself. Her face was there on the wall, already part of the pattern, already consumed. You see, the creature asked, you were always mine. From the moment I tasted your fear, from the moment I took your fingers, you have been part of me and I have been part of you. The silver cage didn't weaken me, it made us one. Jenna looked at the faces, at the trapped souls, at Ruiz on the throne. She felt the weight of the silver blade in her hand, the weight of the sacrifice that had been made, the weight of all the lives that had been lost. And she understood. The shadow purge wasn't about destroying the creature. It was about freeing its victims, about severing the connections not just between the living and the dead, but between the dead and their prison. You're wrong, she said. I'm not part of you, I never was. She raised the silver blade, not at the creature but at herself, at the scars on her hand, at the connection that still hummed beneath her skin. What are you doing? The creature asked, its voice suddenly uncertain. Severing the bond, Jenna said, the right way. She brought the blade down, cutting into her scarred hand, following the lines of silver that pulsed beneath her skin. The pain was incredible, blinding, but she didn't stop. She cut deeper, tracing the network of connections, the web of hunger that the creature had spun through her flesh. No, the creature screamed. Stop, you'll kill us both. Maybe, Jenna said, her voice steady despite the blood that poured from her wound. But I'd rather die free than live as part of you. She cut the last connection, severing the final thread, and the world exploded. Light, blinding, burning light. The darkness of the Wendigo's heart was torn open, and the souls trapped within began to rise. Jenna saw them streaming past her, freed at last from their prison, Sergeant Okonkwo, his face relaxing into peace. Grace, her devotion finally rewarded with release. The soldiers, the civilians, the countless victims of centuries of hunger. And Ruiz. He turned to her as he rose, his eyes clear now, human. He smiled, that same smile he had worn in the moment of sacrifice, and mouthed two words. Thank you. Then he was gone, carried up and out, back to the world of the living or the peace of the dead. Jenna didn't know which. She only knew that he was free. The Wendigo screamed. It was a sound of pure rage, of loss, of hunger denied. The chamber shook, the walls crumbling, the throne collapsing. The creature's form, its spiritual form, its true form, was revealed in the light. A thing of endless mouths and endless appetite, a void shaped like a beast. You cannot destroy me, it howled. I am eternal, I am hunger itself. No, Jenna said, rising from the ground, her blood still flowing, her hand still gripping the silver blade. You are just a ghost, a memory of hunger, and memories can be forgotten. She lunged forward, driving the blade into the center of the creature's form, into the heart of the void. The silver flared, burning with a light that consumed everything: the darkness, the hunger, the endless appetite. The Wendigo shrieked, its form dissolving, unraveling, coming apart at the seams. "This is not the end," it screamed. "Hunger always returns, always finds a way." "Maybe," Jenna said, "but not today." She twisted the blade and the light intensified, and the Wendigo, the thing that had been the Wendigo, that had worn 1,000 faces and consumed 1,000 souls, finally died. The darkness collapsed, and Jenna fell. She woke to pain. Her hand was a mess of blood and torn flesh, the silver glow completely gone, replaced by the red of fresh injury. She was lying in the crater, surrounded by smoke and ash, and above her the sky was clear and blue. "Jenna!" Nasha's face appeared above her, worried, relieved, ancient and young at the same time. "You're alive. By the ancestors, you're alive." "Did it work?" Jenna asked, her voice a rasp. "Is it?" "Gone," Nasha said, "truly gone, the shadow purge. You completed it. No one has ever," she trailed off, shaking her head. "How do you feel?" Jenna considered the question. Her hand hurt, her head hurt, her heart hurt. But the presence that had been lurking in the back of her mind, the hunger that had been whispering in her dreams, that was gone, truly gone. "Free," she said. "I feel free." Nasha helped her sit up, and Jenna saw the devastation around them. The forest was ruined, trees shattered, ground scorched. The soldiers' bodies lay scattered, some still moving, most still. The cultists were gone, fled or dead, she couldn't tell. And in the center of the crater, where the Wendigo's remains had been, there was nothing. Just ash, just emptiness. "Ruiz?" Jenna asked. Nasha's face grew sad. "Gone, his body. There was nothing left, the explosion." "No," Jenna said. "I mean, did you see him when the souls were released?" Nasha's eyes widened. "You saw them, the trapped spirits." "I freed them," Jenna said. "I severed the bonds. They're all at peace now." Nasha was silent for a long moment. "Then he is at peace too," she said finally. "His sacrifice was not in vain." They sat together in the crater, two survivors in a field of destruction, and watched the sun climb higher in the sky. The nightmare was over. The Wendigo was dead. The hunger was gone. But as Jenna looked at her ruined hand, at the scars that would never fully heal, she couldn't shake the feeling that it wasn't truly over, that the creature's final words had been more than just empty threat. Hunger always returns, always finds a way. The weeks that followed were a blur of hospitals and debriefings, of government agents asking questions that Jenna couldn't answer and doctors treating wounds that shouldn't have existed. The official story was a gas explosion at a remote research facility. The unofficial story, the one whispered in the halls of power, was something else entirely. Jenna told them what she could, about the Wendigo, about the cult, about the sacrifice that had ended it. She left out the parts about the shadow purge, about walking into the creature's heart, about the souls she had freed. Those things were hers alone, sacred, secret. Nasha disappeared shortly after the cleanup began, slipping away into the desert with the dawn. "My work here is done," she had said, "but yours is just beginning." Jenna hadn't understood what she meant, not then. She was released from the hospital after 3 weeks, her hand bandaged, her body healing, her mind. Her mind was another matter. The doctors wanted to keep her longer. They talked about trauma, about PTSD, about the need for intensive therapy. But Jenna knew that no amount of therapy could erase what she had seen, what she had done. She went back to her apartment, the one she had abandoned months ago when the itching started, and found it exactly as she had left it. Dust on the counters, mail piled by the door, a life interrupted, waiting to resume. But she couldn't resume it. Not really. She was different now. Changed. The girl who had lived in this apartment, who had worried about rent and relationships and what to watch on TV, that girl was gone. In her place was someone who had walked through fire and darkness, who had faced a god of hunger and survived. She stood in the bathroom, staring at her reflection and waited for something to happen, for the smile that wasn't hers, for the whispers that weren't real. But there was nothing, just her own face, tired and scarred, looking back. "It's over," she told her reflection. "It's really over." Her reflection didn't answer, but for just a moment, so brief she almost convinced herself she'd imagined it, she thought she saw something move behind her, a shape in the shadows, tall and thin, with antlers that scraped the ceiling. She spun around, heart hammering. Nothing, just an empty room, just her imagination. "Get a grip," she muttered, turning back to the mirror. But she didn't look directly at her reflection anymore. Not after that. Some habits were hard to break. The news report came 3 weeks later. Jenna was eating dinner, microwave pasta, because she still couldn't bring herself to cook meat, when the anchor's voice cut through her thoughts. Hiker found dead in the Alaskan wilderness, the victim of what authorities are calling an animal attack. But the details of the case have raised questions, with some experts suggesting the wounds are inconsistent with any known predator. Jenna looked up. The image on the screen showed a forest she didn't recognize, snow-covered trees and frozen ground. And then the body. She dropped her fork. The hiker's chest was torn open, ribs splayed like wings, organs removed with surgical precision. But that wasn't what made Jenna's blood run cold. It was the pattern of frostbite on the skin around the wound. The pattern that formed a face. Sergeant Okonkwo's face. The victim was found in a remote area of the Brooks Range, far from any known bear populations. The cause of death is still under investigation, but local authorities have advised residents to avoid the area until. Jenna didn't hear the rest. She was already on her feet, already moving, already knowing. It wasn't over. It had never been over. She called Nasha that night, using the number the old woman had given her before disappearing into the desert. "I saw the news," Nasha said before Jenna could speak. "I know." "How is this possible?" Jenna asked, her voice shaking. "We destroyed it. I severed the bonds. I felt it die." "You destroyed its body," Nasha said. "You severed its connection to this world, but hunger. Hunger is not a physical thing, Jenna. It is a concept, an idea, a force of nature. You're saying it's still out there. I'm saying it was never truly here to begin with, not in the way we understand. The Wendigo you fought was a manifestation, a vessel, a mouth for the hunger to speak through. And now it has a new mouth." "Yes." Jenna closed her eyes, leaning against the wall of her apartment. "What do we do?" "We hunt," Nasha said. "Again, always, until the end of days." "I'm tired," Jenna admitted. "I'm so tired of running, of fighting, of being afraid." "Then stop running," Nasha said. "Stop fighting, let it come to you." "What?" "You are the connection, Jenna. You always have been. Even severed, even freed, you carry its mark, its memory. It will always be drawn to you. So I become bait, forever." "You become a guardian," Nasha corrected. "A watcher, the one who knows, the one who is ready. And when it comes, then you fight, as you have always fought, as you will always fight." Jenna looked at her scarred hand, at the bandages that covered wounds that would never fully heal. "I can't do this alone." "You won't have to," Nasha said. "There are others. Others who have seen, others who know. The world is full of monsters, Jenna, and it is full of hunters too." "Ruiz is gone," Jenna said, her voice breaking. "Okonkwo is gone. I'm alone." "Are you?" The question hung in the air. Jenna thought of the souls she had freed, the spirits she had released from the Wendigo's prison. She thought of Ruiz's smile, his final words. "Thank you." "They're not gone," she realized. "They're just somewhere else." "Yes," Nasha said. "And they are watching, they are waiting, they are helping in ways we cannot see." Then what do I do now? You live, Nasha said. You heal, you prepare. And when the time comes, when the hunger rises again, you will be ready. And until then, you remember. You remember what you fought for, what you sacrificed, what you saved. Jenna looked out her window, at the city lights below, at the world going about its business, unaware of the darkness that lurked at its edges. It won't stay hidden forever, she said. No, Nasha agreed. It never does, but neither do we. Jenna moved to Alaska 3 months later. Not to the Brooks Range, not yet, but to a small town on the coast, where the mountains met the sea and the forests grew thick and dark. She bought a cabin on the edge of town, far enough from neighbors that she could see the stars at night, close enough that she didn't have to be completely alone. She got a job at the local library, shelving books, helping patrons, living a life that looked normal from the outside. But she never stopped watching, never stopped listening, never stopped preparing. She kept silver in her home, salt across the thresholds, protective symbols carved into the doorframes. She learned what she could from Nasha's occasional letters, from books she found in forgotten corners of the internet, from the whispers of locals who had seen things they couldn't explain. And she waited. The reports continued. A hunter found frozen in his cabin, surrounded by food he had refused to eat. A village that vanished overnight, leaving only tracks in the snow that led nowhere. A child who woke screaming, saying the trees were hungry. Each time Jenna felt the pull. The connection that had never truly died just changed. The hunger that recognized her, that wanted her, that would never stop wanting. And each time she considered going to it, facing it, ending it once and for all. But she knew better now, knew that there was no ending it, no final victory, only the endless cycle of hunt and be hunted, of fight and survive, of living with the knowledge that the darkness was always there, waiting. She wasn't running anymore, she wasn't hiding, she was standing guard. And that, she realized, was enough. The winter came early that year, hard and cold and endless. The snow piled up against Jenna's cabin, burying the world in white, cutting her off from the town, from help, from escape. She didn't mind. The isolation suited her. The silence was a comfort. But one night in the depths of January, when the temperature had dropped so low that the trees cracked like gunshots, she heard something. A whisper. Not in her mind, she would have recognized that. This was a real sound, carried on the wind, coming from the forest beyond her window. Jenna. She froze, her hand on the silver knife she kept by her bed. Jenna, it's cold, so cold. The voice was familiar, too familiar. Ruiz, she whispered. Help me, the voice said. I'm lost, I'm hungry, I'm not dead, Jenna, I'm not dead. She knew it was a trick. She knew the Wendigo's voice could mimic anyone, anything. She knew that Ruiz was gone, freed, at peace. But she also knew that if there was even a chance, even the smallest possibility, that he was still out there, still suffering, still trapped. She couldn't leave him. She dressed quickly, layers of wool and fur, and stepped out into the night. The cold hit her like a physical blow, stealing her breath, burning her skin. But she kept moving, following the voice, following the whisper. This way, it said. Into the trees, I'm here, I'm waiting. The forest closed around her, dark and silent. The snow was deep, coming up to her knees, making every step a struggle. But she pushed on, driven by something she couldn't name. Hope, maybe, or guilt, or the connection that still hummed in her blood, drawing her toward the hunger like a moth to flame. She found the clearing by moonlight. It was small, barely 10 feet across, surrounded by trees that leaned inward like spectators at an execution. And in the center, standing perfectly still, was a figure. Tall, thin, antlered. Hello, Jenna, it said, and its voice was a chorus, 1,000 voices speaking as one. Did you miss me? You're not Ruiz, Jenna said, her hand tight on the silver knife. No, the creature agreed. But I have his memories, his thoughts, his love for you. Would you like to hear them? No. He thinks about you constantly, even now, even free. He wonders if you survived, if you're happy, if you think of him. Stop. He wants to come back, to help you, to protect you, but he can't. The veil is too thick, the distance too great. The creature stepped closer, and Jenna saw that it was different from before. Smaller, weaker. Not the towering god of hunger she had faced in the forest, but something diminished, something new. You're not the same, she said. No, it agreed. You destroyed my vessel, my power, my connection to the old ways. I am reduced, reborn, a seed of what I was, planted in new soil. The hiker, Jenna realized, the one in the Brooks Range, you used him. I used his hunger, the creature corrected. His isolation, his despair. The wilderness does things to people, Jenna, makes them malleable. And now you want me. I always want you, the creature said. You are my favorite, my almost victim, the one who got away. I have thought of nothing else since you severed our bond. Then come and get me, Jenna said, raising the silver knife. I'm right here. The creature laughed, a sound like breaking ice. So brave, so foolish. You think a little silver can stop me now? You think your courage means anything in the face of eternal hunger? I think, Jenna said, that you're bluffing. The laughter stopped. You're weak, Jenna continued. Newly born, barely formed. You don't have the strength to take me. Not yet. That's why you're talking. Why you're trying to trick me. Why you're using Ruiz's voice. I am eternal. You're a ghost, Jenna interrupted. A shadow, a memory of something that used to be terrifying, and I am done being afraid of memories. She stepped forward, and the creature stepped back. You cannot kill me, it said, but there was uncertainty in its voice now. Fear. I am hunger, I am. You're a monster, Jenna said, and I've killed monsters before. She lunged. The silver knife caught the moonlight as it arced through the air, and the creature screamed, a sound of pure terror, of a predator realizing it had become prey. It tried to flee, tried to dissolve into the shadows, but Jenna was faster. She was always faster. The blade sank into the creature's chest, and the Wendigo, this new, weak, diminished Wendigo, shuddered and collapsed. This isn't over, it whispered, its voice fading. Hunger never dies. No, Jenna agreed, pulling the blade free, but it can be delayed. She stepped back and watched as the creature dissolved, its form unraveling like smoke in the wind. Within moments, there was nothing left but frost on the snow and a faint smell of copper. It wasn't dead. She knew that it would never be dead. It would find another vessel, another host, another mouth to speak its hunger. Maybe tomorrow, maybe next year, maybe in a century. But for now, it was gone. And Jenna was still standing. She walked back to her cabin through the frozen night, her breath clouding the air, her hand wrapped around the silver knife. The cold didn't bother her anymore. The dark didn't scare her. She was the hunter now, the guardian, the one who knew. And she would be ready. Always. Deep in the Brooks Range, where the snow never melts and the trees grow twisted and black, something stirred. It was small, weak, barely more than a whisper, but it was there, it was alive, it was hungry. And it remembered. It remembered the woman with the scarred hand, the one who had defied it, who had destroyed its vessel, who had severed its bonds and freed its prey. It remembered her courage, her strength, her refusal to submit. And it wanted her. Not just to consume, not just to wear, but to break, to make her understand that hunger was eternal, that resistance was futile, that in the end everyone fed the beast. It would take time. Years, maybe, decades, centuries. It was patient. It had always been patient. But someday it would find her again. And this time there would be no escape. This time the hunger would win. Jenna Bowen stood on the porch of her cabin, watching the sun rise over the mountains. The light turned the snow pink and gold, beautiful and deadly. She thought of Ruiz, of Okonkwo, of Nasha and all the others who had fought beside her. She thought of the creature, waiting somewhere in the dark, growing stronger, preparing for its return. And she smiled. "Let it come," she whispered to the morning. "I'm ready." The wind carried her words away, out into the wilderness, out to where the hunger waited. And somewhere, in the space between worlds, something that had once been a Wendigo smiled back. The hunt would continue. Forever. Project Hollow. The first thing Dr. Austin Haynes noticed was the silence. Not the sterile quiet of a laboratory with its hum of ventilation and whisper of climate control. Not the peaceful silence of nature with its subtle symphony of wind and wildlife. This was something else entirely. A heavy, watchful silence. The silence of something pretending to sleep. He stood at the entrance to the Black Ridge Research Complex, his breath misting in the frigid Alaskan air, and felt the weight of that silence press against his eardrums like water at depth. The facility loomed before him, a concrete bunker half buried in snow, its few windows dark and reflective. It looked less like a research station and more like a tomb. Dr. Haynes. He turned to find a man approaching from the main building. Military bearing, civilian clothes, early 50s, with the weathered look of someone who had spent decades in harsh climates. The smile he wore didn't reach his eyes. "Commander Harlow," the man said, extending a gloved hand. "Welcome to Black Ridge. I trust the flight wasn't too rough." "It was fine," Haynes said, shaking the offered hand. Harlow's grip was firm, dry, and slightly too warm despite the cold. "Though I have to admit I'm still not entirely clear on why I'm here. The briefing was vague." Harlow's smile widened, showing teeth that were slightly too white, slightly too even. "That's by design, Doctor. What we're studying here doesn't lend itself to clear explanations." He gestured toward the facility entrance. "But you'll see soon enough. You signed the NDA, now you get to see why." They walked together through doors that were thicker than Haynes's forearm was long, past security checkpoints that required retinal scans and voice prints, down corridors that sloped steadily downward. The air grew warmer as they descended, but it also grew heavier, thick with the smell of ozone and something else, damp earth, Haynes realized. The scent of caves, of things buried deep. "How far down are we going?" Haynes asked. 37 floors, Harlow said, below ground level. Haynes stopped walking. 37, that's deeper than most missile silos, deeper than the Denver International Airport. "We need the depth," Harlow said, his voice casual, "for containment." "Containment of what?" Harlow turned to face him, and for just a moment his smile slipped. Haynes saw something underneath, fear maybe, or respect, or both. "You'll see," Harlow said. "The elevator's this way." The elevator was an industrial cage, large enough to hold 20 people, lined with materials that Haynes didn't recognize. They looked like ceramic, but felt warm to the touch, and hummed with a frequency that made his teeth ache. "Faraday cage," Harlow explained, noticing his discomfort. "Blocks electromagnetic signals, prevents interference." "Interference from what?" Harlow didn't answer. He pressed a button labeled B37, and the elevator began to descend. The ride took longer than it should have. Haynes watched the numbers tick down, B5, B10, B15, and felt the pressure change in his ears, his sinuses, his chest. They were deep, deeper than any research facility had a right to be. At B25, the lights flickered. "Normal," Harlow said before Haynes could ask. "The power grid down here is temperamental." "Temperamental how?" "It doesn't like certain frequencies, certain presences." Haynes opened his mouth to ask what that meant, but the elevator was slowing, and Harlow was straightening his jacket, and the doors were opening with a sound like a sigh. "Welcome," Harlow said, "to the lower levels." The corridor beyond the elevator was unlike anything Haynes had seen in a research facility. The walls were rough-hewn stone, not concrete, as if the complex had been carved directly from the bedrock rather than built. The floor was polished obsidian, reflective and dark, showing Haynes his own distorted image as he walked. And the lights were wrong. They weren't fluorescent tubes or LED panels. They were globes of some phosphorescent material, embedded in the ceiling at irregular intervals, casting a pale blue illumination that made everything look underwater. "We keep the lights on down here," Harlow said, his voice echoing strangely in the stone corridor. "It doesn't like the dark." Haynes asked. "What is it?" "Patience, doctor, we're almost there." They passed doors marked with symbols Haynes didn't recognize, not scientific designations but something older, something that looked almost like writing, like language. "What are these markings?" he asked, pointing to a series of carved lines on the wall beside one door. "Warnings," Harlow said, in a language that predates human civilization. Haynes laughed, a short, nervous sound. "That's not possible." "Many things are possible down here, doctor, many things that shouldn't be." They turned a corner, and Haynes saw a group of people waiting outside a set of double doors. 3 of them, dressed in lab coats and military uniforms, their faces showing various degrees of exhaustion and fear. "Your team," Harlow said. "Dr. Lian Chen, lead xenobiologist, Dr. Rajat Mehra, containment engineer, and Private Cole, military liaison." Haynes approached them, extending his hand. Chen shook it first. Her grip was firm, professional, but her eyes were red-rimmed and sleepless. She wore a high collar on her lab coat, and Haynes caught a glimpse of something beneath it. Scars. Bite marks, maybe. "Dr. Haynes," she said, "we've been expecting you. Your work on extremophile organisms is impressive." "Thank you," Haynes said, "though I have to admit I'm not sure how that applies to whatever you're studying here." Chen exchanged a glance with Harlow. Something passed between them, some silent communication. "You'll understand soon," she said. Mehra was next, younger than Chen, with nervous hands that twitched constantly, adjusting his glasses, checking his tablet, touching the wall as if to reassure himself it was solid. His smile was quick and desperate. "The containment systems," he said when Haynes asked about his work. "I designed them, the barriers, the locks, the protocols." He laughed, a high, strained sound. "They have to be perfect, absolutely perfect. One mistake, one flaw, and—" He trailed off, his eyes darting to the double doors. "And," Haynes prompted. "We don't touch the glass," Private Cole said. Haynes turned to look at the soldier. Cole was young, maybe 25, with the blank expression of someone who had seen too much too young. He stared at the double doors with an intensity that bordered on reverence. "What glass?" Haynes asked. Cole didn't answer. He just kept staring at the doors. "Private Cole has been here longer than any of us," Harlow explained. "He's seen things that change a person." "What things?" Harlow smiled, that same too-wide smile from before. "Why don't we show you?" He pressed his palm against a scanner beside the doors, and they hissed open with a sound like escaping steam. "Welcome," Harlow said, "to the containment unit." The space beyond the doors was enormous. Haynes's first thought was that it couldn't exist. The elevator had descended 37 floors, but this chamber was easily the size of a football stadium, extending further than the light could reach. His second thought was that it was beautiful. It was an artificial forest, real pine trees, hundreds of them, growing from soil that shouldn't exist this far underground. A shallow river ran through the center, its water clear and cold, fed by a spring that bubbled up from somewhere in the darkness. Fog drifted between the trees, and somewhere in the distance, Haynes heard the sound of birds. "It's incredible," he breathed. "How is this possible, the light alone?" The trees are real, Chen said, her voice flat. The river is real, the birds are recordings. Recordings. It likes the sounds, Cole said, still not looking at Haynes. The sounds of life, they calm it. It, Haynes repeated. You keep saying it. What is it? There, Harlow said, pointing. Haynes followed his finger, peering into the fog-shrouded trees. At first he saw nothing, just shadows, just darkness. Then the motion sensors flickered. Red lights embedded in the trees flashing in sequence, tracking something, following something. And Haynes saw it. At first he thought it was a bear, large, shaggy, moving on all fours through the underbrush. But then it stood and he saw that it was humanoid. Tall, at least 7 feet, with limbs that were too long, too jointed, bending in directions that human joints shouldn't bend. Its skin was wrong. That was the only word Haynes could think of. It shifted and pulsed, changing texture even as he watched, fur becoming smooth, flesh becoming scales, becoming something else entirely. And its face. It turned to look at him. The face was almost human, almost, but the proportions were wrong, the eyes too large, the mouth too wide, the teeth too numerous. And when it saw Haynes watching, it smiled. Not a human smile, something else, something that showed all those teeth, row after row of them, glinting in the red light of the motion sensors. My God, Haynes whispered. Not God, Harlow said, something else, something older. What is it? We don't know, Chen said. Not really. It was found in a cave system in the Brooks Range, frozen in ice that dated back 11,000 years. We thought it. We studied it. We tried to understand it. And we learned that it's not from here, Mara said, his voice shaking. Not from Earth. Not from anywhere we recognize. Its biology is impossible. Its cells don't decay. Its DNA doesn't match any known life form. It can survive in vacuum, in extreme heat, in crushing pressure. It can change its form, its mass, its density. It can. He stopped, his hands twitching more violently now. It can what? Haynes asked. It can learn, Cole said. It watches us, studies us, copies us. Copies. Voices, Cole said, and his own voice cracked. Faces, mannerisms, it learns to be like us, to sound like us, to look like us. Haynes looked back at the creature. It was still watching him, still smiling. And as he watched, its skin shifted again, the fur receding, the features rearranging themselves into something almost familiar. Almost like Haynes's own face. It's doing it now, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. It's copying me. It likes new people, Harlow said. New faces, new voices, new possibilities. That's not a specimen, Haynes said, backing away from the glass. That's not a research subject, that's a prisoner. Yes, Chen agreed, and like all prisoners, it wants to escape. They took Haynes to the observation deck, a glass-walled room overlooking the containment unit. From here, he could see the entire forest, the river, the red lights of the motion sensors. And he could see the creature, moving through the trees, always watching, always smiling. How long have you had it? He asked. 4 years, Harlow said, since the thaw. And in that time, we've learned that it's intelligent, highly intelligent, capable of problem-solving, of planning, of deception. We've learned that it's patient, it will wait months, years for an opportunity. We've learned that it's hungry, not for food, not exactly, but for experience, for connection, for the essence of other beings. You mean it eats people? It consumes them, Chen corrected, takes them apart, absorbs their memories, their knowledge, their identity, and then it wears them like a skin, like a mask. That's monstrous. Yes, Harlow agreed, but also useful. Haynes turned to look at him. Useful how? Harlow's smile returned, that predatory expression that Haynes was learning to hate. Imagine a weapon that could become anyone, that could infiltrate any organization, any government, any military. That could wear your enemy's face and walk among them undetected. You're talking about weaponizing it. I'm talking about understanding it, Harlow said, learning from it, using its abilities for the greater good. And the cost? Research requires sacrifice, Harlow said. You know that, doctor. You've dissected thousands of organisms in your career. Not sentient organisms. Are you sure? How do you define sentience? Intelligence, self-awareness. This creature has all of those things, more perhaps than we do. Haynes looked back at the containment unit. The creature was directly below them now, looking up through the glass. Its face had finished changing, and it wore Haynes's features like a mask, distorted and wrong but unmistakably his. It knows we're talking about it, he said. It knows everything, Cole said. It hears everything, it sees everything. Then why keep it? Why not destroy it? We tried, Chen said quietly. In the first year, we tried everything: fire, acid, radiation, explosives. Nothing worked. It always came back, always reformed, always remembered. Remembered what? Us, Mara said. It remembers everyone who hurt it, everyone who tried to kill it, and it waits, it plans, it prepares. For what? For escape, Cole said. For revenge, for the feast. Haynes felt a chill that had nothing to do with the temperature. How close has it come to escaping? Harlow and Chen exchanged another glance. Close, Harlow admitted. Too close. That's why we brought you here, Doctor. We need new perspectives, new approaches. Someone who understands organisms that shouldn't exist. Someone who might see something we've missed. And if I can't help? Then we continue as we have, Harlow said. Watching, waiting, hoping it doesn't find a way out. And if it does? Harlow's smile finally faltered. Then we pray, he said. We pray that someone survives to tell the story. They gave Haynes quarters on B-36, one floor above the containment unit. The room was small but comfortable: bed, desk, private bathroom, a window that looked out on. Nothing. Just rock, just darkness. He sat on the bed, staring at the wall, trying to process what he had seen. The creature, the containment, the casual way they spoke of weaponizing something that clearly shouldn't exist. His phone buzzed, a message from an unknown number. Welcome to the family, Dr. Haynes. We have such sights to show you. He stared at the screen, his heart hammering. The message was signed with a symbol he didn't recognize, a spiral coiled in on itself, eating its own tail. He deleted the message and tried to sleep. He dreamed of forests, of darkness, of something wearing his face, smiling with his mouth, reaching for him with his hands. He woke at 3:47 a.m. gasping, his sheets soaked with sweat. And in the darkness of his room, he heard breathing that wasn't his own. The breathing stopped when Haynes turned on the light. He sat in his bed, heart hammering, scanning the empty room. Nothing. No one. Just shadows in corners, the whisper of ventilation, the hum of the facility's power systems. Just a dream, he told himself. Just the dark, just your imagination. But he didn't believe it. He got up, dressed, and went to find coffee. The facility's mess hall was empty at this hour, just rows of tables and vending machines glowing in the darkness. He poured himself a cup from the industrial pot and sat at a table near the window, staring at his own reflection in the glass. Can't sleep. He jumped, spilling coffee across the table. Dr. Chen stood in the doorway, wearing the same clothes she'd had on earlier, the same sleepless eyes. Sorry, she said, not sounding sorry at all. Didn't mean to startle you. It's fine, Haynes said, wiping up the spill with napkins. Just not used to the quiet. It gets louder, Chen said, sitting across from him. The longer you're here, the silence. It starts to have weight, texture. You begin to hear things in it. Like breathing. Chen's eyes flickered. You've heard it too. Just now, in my room. It does that, Chen said. Projects itself. sends pieces of itself through the vents, the drains, the spaces between walls. It's not strong enough to form fully, not yet, but it's practicing, learning, getting ready. For what? For the breakout, Chen said. It always breaks out, eventually. How many times has it escaped? Officially, never. Chen smiled, a bitter expression. Unofficially, 3 times. The first year before they upgraded the containment. The second year when it learned to mimic the security codes. The third time. She trailed off, touching the scars on her neck. The third time was different. What happened? It got out of the unit, Chen said. Into the facility. It was loose for 6 hours before they contained it again. 6 hours of hunting. 6 hours of... She stopped, her hand trembling. 6 hours I still dream about. It attacked you. It studied me, Chen corrected. Touched me, tasted me, learned what I was made of. She pulled down her collar, revealing the full extent of the scarring. Bite marks. Dozens of them arranged in patterns that looked almost deliberate. It didn't want to kill me. It wanted to understand me, to know how to wear me. My God. After that they changed the protocols, Chen said, covering the scars again. More security, more isolation, more precautions, but it doesn't matter. It's only a matter of time. Until what? Until it finds the flaw, Chen said. The gap, the mistake. There's always a mistake, Dr. Haynes, always something someone missed, and when it finds it. She didn't finish. She didn't need to. They sat together in silence, drinking coffee that tasted like burnt metal. Haynes watched the window, watching his reflection, watching the darkness beyond. Why do you stay? He asked. If you know it's going to escape, if you know what it can do. Because someone has to, Chen said. Because if we all leave, if we all run, then there's no one to stop it when it finally gets out. No one to warn the world. No one to contain it. You could warn them now. Tell the government, tell the military. We have, Chen said. They know, they just don't care, or rather they care about the wrong things. She leaned forward, her voice dropping to a whisper. They want to use it, Dr. Haynes, to weaponize it, to make more of them. Can you imagine? An army of things that can wear any face, that can infiltrate anywhere. That's insane. That's politics, Chen said. That's power. That's the reason this facility exists and the reason it will continue to exist until the day it fails. And when it fails, then we die, Chen said simply. All of us. And the creature goes out into the world, wearing our faces, speaking with our voices, and no one will know the difference until it's too late. She stood, draining her cup. Get some sleep, Dr. Haynes, you'll need it. For what? For tomorrow, she said. Your first day of observation. Your first day of really seeing what we're dealing with. She walked away, her footsteps echoing in the empty hall. Haynes sat alone, staring at his reflection, wondering if the face looking back was really his own. The observation began at 800. Haynes was escorted to a room on B37, a glass-walled chamber overlooking the containment unit from a different angle than before. This one was closer to the forest floor, giving him a clear view of the trees, the river, the creature's movements. Mara was there, hunched over a console, monitoring readouts that Haynes couldn't decipher. Vital signs, Mara explained, noticing his confusion. Though vital might not be the right word, it doesn't have a heartbeat, doesn't breathe, not really, doesn't produce body heat, but it has activity, patterns, rhythms that we can track. And right now, sleeping, Mara said, or pretending to sleep, it's hard to tell the difference. Haynes looked out at the forest. The creature was visible, lying on the bank of the river, its body curled in on itself, its skin pulsing slowly with a rhythm that might have been breathing. How do you know it's not really sleeping? Because it never sleeps, Mara said. Not really, it rests, it waits, but it's always aware, always watching. Even now. Especially now. As if in response to their words, the creature stirred. It uncurled, rising to its full height, and turned to face the observation window. Haynes felt his blood run cold. The creature was looking directly at him, its eyes too large, too dark, fixed on his face, and it was smiling. "It knows you're here," Mara said. "It always knows." "What does it want?" "To get out," Mara said. "To consume, to become. It's simple, really, terrifyingly simple." The creature began to move, walking toward the window with a gait that was wrong, joints bending backward, limbs too long, movements fluid and predatory. It stopped at the glass, pressing its face against the transparent barrier, and Haynes saw his own features staring back at him. "It's wearing my face," he said. "It does that," Mara said. "With new people, it learns them, studies them, gets ready to wear them." "How close can it get?" "To the glass, as close as it wants. The barrier is special, designed specifically for this. It can't pass through, can't break it, can't even scratch it. But it can see through it." "Oh yes," Mara said. "It can see, it can hear, it can smell. The glass is one way from our side, but from its side, it's just a window into our world." The creature pressed its hand against the glass, and Haynes saw that its fingers were wrong, too many joints, too many digits, bending in directions that fingers shouldn't bend. And as he watched, the fingers began to change, rearranging themselves into a shape that was almost human. Almost like his own hand. "It's learning," Mara whispered. Faster than before." "What does that mean?" "It means it's getting ready," Mara said. "For something, for escape, for—" He stopped, his eyes widening. "What?" Haynes asked. "What is it?" "The readings," Mara said, pointing at his console. "They're wrong, the patterns are. It's not resting, it's not waiting, it's—" An alarm blared, red lights flashing across the console. "It's sedated," Mara said, his voice rising in panic. "We sedated it last night. It should be unconscious for another 6 hours, but the readings. It's awake, it's active, it's—" The creature smiled, and Haynes saw that its teeth had changed. They were his teeth now, perfect replicas down to the filling in his left molar. "It's faking," Haynes realized. "The sedation, it's been awake the whole time." "That's impossible," Mara said. "The dosage is calculated for its mass, its metabolism. It shouldn't be able to—" The intercom crackled to life, and a voice came through. A voice Haynes recognized. "Dr. Mara," the voice said. "This is Commander Harlow. Report to the armory immediately. We have a situation." Mara reached for the intercom button, but Haynes stopped him. "Wait," he said. "That's not Harlow." "What?" "Listen, the cadence, the tone, it's wrong." Mara listened, his hand hovering over the button, and Haynes saw the moment he understood, the moment he heard what Haynes heard. The voice was close but not quite right. The words were right, but the rhythm was wrong, like a recording played slightly too slow. "It's mimicking," Mara whispered. "It's learned to mimic voices over the intercom." "Which means—" "It knows the codes," Mara finished. "It knows how to communicate, how to lure." They looked at each other, then at the creature. It was still pressed against the glass, still smiling, still wearing Haynes's face. And as they watched, it opened its mouth and spoke. "Dr. Mara," it said, and its voice was Harlow's voice, perfect and precise. "Report to the airlock. I need your assistance." The words came from the intercom, but the creature's mouth moved in perfect synchronization. "My God," Mara breathed. "It can project. It can send its voice through the system." "How is that possible?" "I don't know, I don't." The intercom crackled again, and this time the voice was different, younger, more desperate. "Mom," the voice said. "Mom, is that you? I'm scared, I don't know where I am." Mara's face went white. That's my son, that's David, he's at home in California." "It's not your son," Haynes said. "It's the creature, it's using his voice." "But how does it know? How does it know what my son sounds like?" "It learned," Haynes said. From your fear, it knows what you care about, what you'll risk everything for. Mom, please, the voice continued. I need you, I'm hurt, Mara reached for the intercom, his hand shaking. Haynes grabbed his wrist. Don't, he said, it's a trap. But if it's really him? It's not, it's the creature, it's always the creature. Mara hesitated, his face torn between fear and hope. And in that moment of hesitation, the creature struck. It didn't attack the glass, it didn't try to break through, it simply reached. Its hand pressed against the transparent barrier, and Haynes saw something impossible. The fingers began to sink into the glass, not breaking it, not shattering it, but merging with it, becoming part of it. The creature's hand passed through the barrier as if it were water and emerged on the other side. That's impossible, Mara screamed. The glass is solid, it's designed to contain anything. It learned, Haynes said, backing away. It learned to become part of things, to merge with them. The creature's arm was through now, reaching into the observation room. Its face was still pressed against the glass, still smiling, still wearing Haynes's features. And its hand, its terrible, too long hand, was reaching for Mara. Run, Haynes shouted. They ran. The alarm was blaring now, a continuous shriek that filled the facility. Red lights flashed in every corridor, and Haynes heard shouting, running footsteps, the sound of doors sealing shut. Lock down, someone screamed over the intercom. We have a breach, containment compromised, all personnel to emergency stations. Haynes ran, not knowing where he was going, just following Mara through corridors that twisted and turned like a maze. Behind them, he heard something wet, something sliding, something that moved with a sound like tearing flesh. This way, Mara shouted, turning a corner. The armory, we can defend ourselves. They burst through a door and found themselves in a room lined with weapons. Rifles, pistols, grenades. Harlow was there, and Chen and Private Cole. All of them armed, all of them pale with fear. What happened? Harlow demanded. It got through, Mara gasped. The glass, it learned to pass through. That's impossible, Harlow said. The barrier is. We saw it, Haynes shouted. It's out, it's loose. The lights flickered, once, twice, then went out completely, plunging them into darkness. Emergency power, Cole said, his voice steady despite the dark. Should kick in 3, 2, 1. The emergency lights came on, red and dim, casting everything in the color of blood. And in that red light, they saw what had been waiting in the darkness. It was in the corner, standing perfectly still, watching them with eyes that reflected the emergency lights like a cat's. How did it get here? Chen whispered. The armory is 3 corridors from the containment unit. It moves fast, Cole said, when it wants to. The creature stepped forward, and Haynes saw that it had changed again. Its skin was smoother now, more human. Its limbs were proportioned correctly, bending in the right directions. And its face was Mara's. Rajat, it said, and its voice was perfect. Why are you running? Don't you want to see your son? Don't listen to it, Haynes shouted. It's not real. But I am real, the creature said, turning to face him. And now its face was changing again, rearranging itself into features that Haynes recognized with a jolt of horror. His sister, Sarah, dead for 3 years. Austin, it said, and its voice was Sarah's voice, sweet and sad. Why did you let me die? Why didn't you come? Stop, Haynes whispered, please. I was so alone, the creature continued, stepping closer. So cold, and you were here studying monsters while I was dying. Don't you want to make it up to me? Don't you want to be with me? It's not her, Chen shouted. Haynes, it's not her. But Haynes couldn't move. He was frozen, staring into his sister's eyes, hearing her voice, feeling the weight of guilt that had never left him. I can be her, the creature whispered. I can be anyone you want, everyone you've lost, everyone you've loved. Just let me in, just let me taste you. It reached for him, and Haynes saw its hand was changing again. Fingers splitting, multiplying, becoming something that could grasp and hold and consume. "Fire!" Harlow screamed. The gunshots were deafening in the enclosed space. Harlow and Cole opened up with their rifles, silver bullets tearing into the creature's body. It shrieked, a sound like tearing metal, and stumbled backward, its form dissolving, reforming, shifting. "Run!" Chen shouted, grabbing Haynes's arm. "While it's distracted." They ran, all of them, pouring out of the armory and into the corridor. Behind them, the creature's shrieks turned to laughter, high and wild and utterly inhuman. "It lets us hurt it," Cole said as they ran. "It likes the pain, it learns from it." "Then how do we stop it?" Haynes gasped. "We don't," Chen said. "We just survive." They reached the emergency stairwell and began to climb floor after floor, their breath coming in ragged gasps. The creature didn't follow, not directly. But Haynes could hear it somewhere below, moving through the facility with liquid grace, taking its time. "It's hurting us," he realized, "driving us where it wants us to go." "Then we don't go there," Harlow said. "We find another way." "There is no other way," Cole said. "The facility is designed to channel breaches toward the surface. It's part of the containment protocol." "You mean we're running into a trap?" "I mean we're doing exactly what it wants." They reached B-20 and the stairwell ended. The door ahead was sealed, red lights flashing across its surface. "Security lockdown," Mara said, checking his badge against the scanner. "We need clearance to proceed." "Use mine," Harlow said, pressing his own badge to the reader. The light turned green and the door hissed open. Beyond was a corridor that Haynes didn't recognize, wider than the others, lined with doors that had no windows, no markings, nothing to indicate what lay beyond. "Where are we?" he asked. "The secondary containment area," Harlow said, "where we keep the other subjects." "Other subjects?" Harlow didn't answer. He just kept walking faster now, his face set in grim lines. They passed door after door, and from behind some of them, Haynes heard sounds. Movement, breathing, whispers in languages he didn't recognize. "How many are there?" he asked. "How many creatures do you have here?" "7," Chen said, "including the one that escaped." "7. We found them in different places," Mara explained. "Different caves, different ice formations, different contexts. They're all similar but different, variations on a theme." "And you keep them all here, underground?" "Where else would we keep them?" Harlow asked. "Where else could we study them, control them?" "You don't control them," Haynes said. "You just contain them temporarily." Harlow stopped walking and turned to face him. In the red emergency light, his face looked like a skull. "Do you have a better idea, Doctor?" he asked. "Would you prefer we let them loose, let them walk among us, wear our faces, consume our families?" "I would prefer you destroyed them." "We tried," Harlow said. "Believe me, we tried. Fire, acid, explosives, radiation, dismemberment, incineration, nothing works. They always come back, always reform, always remember." "Then why study them? Why keep them?" "Because knowledge is power," Harlow said. "Because if we can't destroy them, we can at least understand them, learn their weaknesses, find a way to fight them." "And have you found a way?" Harlow's silence was answer enough. They kept walking, through corridors that grew narrower, older, less maintained. The walls here were bare stone, not concrete, carved with symbols that Haynes recognized from the lower levels. "We're getting close," Cole said, "to the surface." "How close?" "5 more floors, maybe 6. "Then we can get out, call for help." "There's no help coming," Harlow said. "The facility is isolated by design. No communication with the outside world during a breach. It's protocol." "Then we break protocol." "And risk letting it escape into the world," Harlow shook his head. "No, we contain it, or we die trying." They reached another stairwell and began to climb again. Haynes's legs burned, his lungs ached, but fear drove him onward. Behind them, somewhere in the darkness, he could hear the creature moving, not rushing, not chasing, just following, waiting. "Why doesn't it just attack?" he asked. "Why play with us?" "Because it's learning," Chen said. "Studying. It wants to understand us before it consumes us." That's monstrous." "Yes," Chen agreed, "but also intelligent, more intelligent than we gave it credit for." They reached B5, and the stairwell opened into a large chamber. Haynes recognized it immediately, the entrance hall where he had first arrived. The doors to the outside were visible ahead, heavy steel barriers that looked like they could withstand a bomb. "We're here," he breathed. "We made it." "Not yet," Harlow said, pointing. The doors were sealed. Red lights flashed across their surface, and a computer voice droned from speakers overhead. "Facility lockdown in effect. All exits sealed. Breach protocols active. Remain in place and await further instructions." "Override," Harlow shouted, approaching the control panel. "Commander Harlow, authorization Alpha 79er." "Authorization denied," the computer replied. "Breach protocols cannot be overridden during active containment failure." "Then we're trapped," Mara said, his voice rising in panic. "We're trapped in here with it." "Not yet," Cole said, moving to a secondary panel. "There's an emergency exit, maintenance access. It's not on the main system." "Show me," Harlow said. Cole worked the controls, his fingers flying across the keyboard. The red lights flickered, and somewhere in the distance, Haynes heard a door open. "There," Cole said, "corridor B12 leads to the surface." "Then let's go," Harlow said. They ran, following Cole through corridors that twisted and turned, past storage rooms and maintenance closets, past doors that led to places Haynes didn't want to imagine. And all the while, behind them, the creature followed. Haynes could feel it now. Not just hear it, but feel it, a pressure against his mind, a presence that whispered and promised and threatened. "I can be her," it whispered, and Sarah's voice was in his head, clear as memory. "I can be anyone, everyone, just let me in, just let me taste you." "Ignore it," Chen said, grabbing his arm. "It's in your mind, it's not real." "It feels real," Haynes gasped. "That's what it does," she said. "Makes you doubt, makes you question, makes you invite it in." They reached the emergency exit, a heavy steel door with a manual wheel lock. Cole grabbed the wheel and began to turn, muscles straining against the mechanism. "Hurry," Mara whispered, looking back the way they had come. "It's getting closer." "I know," Cole grunted. "Almost got it." The wheel turned, the lock released, and the door swung open. Cold air rushed in, real Alaskan air, frigid and pure, carrying the scent of snow and pine. "Go," Harlow shouted. They poured through the door, out into the night. The facility's exterior was lit by floodlights, casting long shadows across the snow. And in the distance, Haynes could see the landing strip, the helicopter that had brought him here, the promise of escape. "The chopper," he shouted. "We can use the chopper." They ran toward it, slipping and sliding on ice, their breath misting in the cold. Behind them, the emergency door slammed shut, and Haynes heard the wheel turning from the inside. "It's following," Chen gasped. "It's outside." "Then we fly," Harlow shouted. "Cole, can you pilot?" "Yes, sir." "Then get us in the air, now." They reached the helicopter, piled inside, Cole taking the pilot's seat while the others strapped in. The engine whined, the rotors began to turn, and Haynes felt a surge of hope. They were going to make it. They were going to escape. And then he looked out the window and saw what was standing on the snow below. It was wearing his face. Not distorted, not wrong. Perfect. Exact. The creature stood there looking up at him with his own eyes, smiling with his own mouth, raising his own hand in a wave. "Go," Haynes screamed. "Go now." Cole didn't hesitate. The helicopter lifted off, banking hard away from the facility, climbing into the night sky. Haynes watched the creature recede below, still standing there, still smiling, still wearing his face. And then it spoke. He couldn't hear it over the roar of the rotors, but he could read its lips. 3 words formed by his own mouth. "See you soon." The helicopter flew north, away from Black Ridge, away from the facility, away from the thing wearing Haynes's face. But Haynes knew with a certainty that made his stomach clench, that they weren't really escaping. They were just delaying. "Where are we going?" he asked, shouting over the engine noise. "There's a secondary facility," Harlow replied. 80 miles north, emergency extraction point." "And then what?" Harlow didn't answer. He just stared out the window, his face set in grim lines. They flew in silence, the helicopter's navigation lights cutting through the darkness. Below, the Alaskan wilderness stretched endless and empty, forests and mountains and frozen rivers, a landscape that could hide anything. "It's still out there," Chen said quietly. She sat beside Haynes, her hand pressed against the window, her eyes distant. "It doesn't need to follow us. It knows where we're going." "How?" Haynes asked. "It tasted you," she said, turning to look at him. "In the containment unit, when it pressed against the glass, it got a sample, skin cells, DNA, memory." "Memory." "It doesn't just copy physical forms," Chen explained. "It copies essence, identity, everything that makes you who you are." "That's impossible." "Most things here are impossible," she said, "until they happen to you." The helicopter shuddered, the engine coughing. "What was that?" Harlow demanded. "Turbulence," Cole said, his hands tight on the controls. "Or something else." The engine coughed again, and Haynes saw warning lights flashing across the console. "We're losing power," Cole said, his voice calm despite the situation. "Something's interfering with the systems." "Can you land?" "I can try." The helicopter descended, spiraling toward a clearing in the forest below. The landing was hard, jarring, the skids digging into snow and frozen earth. But they were down. They were alive. "For now." "Everyone out," Harlow ordered. "We move on foot from here." "On foot," Mara protested. "In this cold, we'll freeze." "Better frozen than consumed," Harlow said. "Now move." They climbed out into the Alaskan night, the cold hitting them like a physical blow. Haynes's breath froze in his beard, his fingers went numb inside his gloves, and every step was a struggle against snow that came up to his knees. "Which way?" he asked. "North," Harlow said, pointing. "The secondary facility is 20 miles. We can make it by dawn if we keep moving." 20 miles in this. "You have a better idea." Haynes didn't. He just followed, trudging through the snow, his muscles burning, his lungs aching. Behind them, the helicopter sat silent and dark, already being buried by fresh snowfall. They walked for hours. The moon rose, casting silver light across the frozen landscape, turning the world into something alien and beautiful. But Haynes couldn't appreciate the beauty. He was too busy listening. Listening for footsteps that weren't theirs. Listening for whispers in the wind. Listening for his own voice, calling him from the darkness. "It's here," Chen said, stopping suddenly. "Where?" Harlow demanded, raising his weapon. "Everywhere," she whispered. "It's in the trees, in the snow, in the air." Haynes looked around, peering into the shadows between the pines. At first he saw nothing, just darkness, just silence. Then the snow moved. It was subtle at first, a ripple, a shift, as if something was swimming beneath the surface. Then the ripple grew, becoming a wave, becoming a path that led directly toward them. "Run!" Harlow shouted. They ran, plunging through drifts, stumbling over hidden roots, their breath coming in ragged gasps. Behind them, the snow erupted, and something rose from the frozen earth. It was huge, bigger than it had been in the facility. Its limbs were longer, its body more fluid, its skin shifting between fur and ice and something that looked like starlight. And its face. Its face was all of them. Haynes saw his own features, twisted and merged with Chen's, with Mayra's, with Harlow's, with Cole's. It wore them all simultaneously, a composite of their identities, their fears, their essences. It learned, Chen gasped, still running. It learned from all of us. Then we split up, Harlow shouted. It can't follow all of us. It can, Cole countered. It can be in multiple places, it can. He stopped, his eyes widening. What? Haynes asked. What is it? My mother, Cole whispered. I hear my mother, she's calling me. It's not your mother, Chen screamed. It's the creature, it's using her voice. But Cole was already moving, turning toward the sound, walking toward the shadows where something that looked like a woman stood waiting. Cole, no, Harlow shouted. The creature moved, fast, faster than anything that large should be able to move. It reached Cole in a heartbeat, its arms wrapping around him, its face, his mother's face, smiling with terrible love. I've missed you, it said, and its voice was perfect. Mom, Cole whispered. Then the creature's face split open, revealing rows of teeth that went down and down, endless and hungry. It bit into Cole's neck, and the soldier screamed, a sound of pure agony that cut off abruptly as his throat filled with blood. Keep moving, Harlow screamed. Don't look back. They ran, leaving Cole behind, leaving the creature to its meal. Haynes heard wet sounds, tearing sounds, the creature's laughter rising above the wind. And then, horribly, he heard Cole's voice again. Come back, it called. I'm fine, it didn't hurt me, I'm like it now, I'm beautiful. Haynes ran faster, his heart hammering, his mind screaming. The creature had Cole now. It had his voice, his memories, his identity. It could be him, perfectly, indistinguishably. It will wear him, Chen gasped, running beside him. It will wear him and hunt us. It will use his face to get close. Then how do we know who's real? We don't, she said. We never do. They ran until they couldn't run anymore, collapsing in a hollow between snow-covered rocks, gasping for breath, their bodies spent. Harlow checked his weapon, counting rounds. Mayra wept silently, his face buried in his hands. We need a plan, Harlow said. We can't just keep running. We need to kill it, Haynes said. We've tried, nothing works. Then we try something new, something it won't expect. Like what? Haynes thought, his mind racing. The creature was intelligent, adaptive. It learned from everything they did, every weapon they used, every tactic they tried. But what if they didn't fight it? What if they offered it something? It wants to understand us, he said slowly, to become us, to wear us. Yes, Chen agreed. Then what if we give it what it wants? What if we let it in? You're insane, Mayra said, looking up. That's suicide. Maybe, Haynes said. But it's also the one thing it won't expect. It knows we'll run. It knows we'll fight. It knows we'll try to kill it, but it doesn't know if we'll invite it. And then what? Harlow asked. Once it's inside, once it's wearing you. Then you kill me, Haynes said. Both of us together. Silence fell over the group. Even the wind seemed to pause, waiting. You're talking about sacrifice, Chen said. I'm talking about the only thing that might work, Haynes said. The creature is spread thin. It's wearing multiple faces, hunting multiple prey. If I can draw it in, concentrate it, trap it in one form. Then we might have a chance, Harlow finished. A small chance. A chance is better than nothing, Haynes said. They looked at each other, the four survivors, and Haynes saw the understanding in their eyes. They knew he was right. They knew this was the only way. How do we do it? Chen asked. I go out there, Haynes said. Alone, I call to it, I invite it, and when it comes, when it takes me, you strike. With what? Mayra asked. We've tried everything. Not everything, Haynes said. We haven't tried, us. What do you mean? The creature learns from us, copies us, becomes us. But what if we become something else, something it can't copy? You're not making sense. I'm making perfect sense, Haynes said. The creature copies identity, essence, self. But what if there's no self to copy? What if we, empty ourselves, become nothing? Meditation, Chen asked, dissociation. Something like that, Haynes said. We clear our minds, become blank, and when it tries to wear us, it finds nothing. And then it dies, Haynes said, or at least, it goes away, it starves. That's not science, Mira said. No, Haynes agreed. It's not, but it's all we have. They prepared in silence. Harlow checked his weapon one last time. Chen closed her eyes, breathing deeply, preparing her mind. Mara just sat, shaking, his face pale. I can't do this, he whispered. I can't be empty, I can't be nothing. Then run, Haynes said. Hide, survive if you can. It will find me. Probably. Mara looked at him, tears streaming down his face. Why are you doing this? Why sacrifice yourself? Because someone has to, Haynes said. And because. He paused, thinking of Sarah, of his sister, of the guilt he had carried for 3 years. Because I have nothing left to lose. He stood, brushing snow from his clothes, and walked out into the open. The moon was high, casting silver light across the frozen landscape. Haynes stood in a clearing, his arms at his sides, his mind racing. How did one become empty? How did one become nothing? He thought of meditation techniques he had learned in college. Focus on the breath, clear the mind, let thoughts pass like clouds. But the creature wasn't interested in his breath. It wanted his essence, his identity, everything that made him Austin Haynes. So he gave it something else. He thought of his guilt, his failure, the way he had let Sarah die alone 3 years ago while he was in the field studying extremophiles in Antarctica. He thought of the phone call, the doctor's voice, the words too late that had echoed in his mind ever since. He thought of his parents, dead before he was 30, his failed marriage, his empty apartment, his life of solitude and study, of choosing organisms over people, of preferring the company of things that couldn't hurt him. He thought of himself as a hollow man, a shell, a container with nothing inside. And as he thought these things, he felt something change. The air grew colder, the silence grew deeper, and from the shadows between the trees something emerged. It was wearing Cole's face now. Perfect, precise, indistinguishable from the real thing. It walked toward Haynes with Cole's gait, smiled with Cole's mouth, reached for him with Cole's hands. Dr. Haynes, it said, and its voice was perfect. I've been looking for you. I know, Haynes said. I've been waiting. The creature paused, its expression flickering. Waiting. For you to take me, to wear me. You want me to. I want you to try, Haynes said. I want you to see what's inside. The creature's smile widened, showing teeth that were too sharp, too numerous. You invite me in. I invite you, Haynes said. Come taste me, become me. It moved fast, faster than he could react. Its arms wrapped around him, its face pressed against his neck, and Haynes felt something pierce his skin. Not teeth, something else. Something that went deeper into his mind, into his memories, into his self. He felt the creature searching, hunting through his identity, looking for something to copy, something to become. And finding nothing. Just guilt, just emptiness. Just a hollow man who had spent his life running from connection, from love, from everything that made life worth living. The creature pulled back, its face confused, its form flickering. What are you? Nothing, Haynes whispered. I'm nothing. No, the creature said, its voice rising in panic. No, you must be something. Everyone is something, everyone has. Has what? Haynes asked. Fear, love, hope. I have none of those. I have only absence, only emptiness, only the void where a person should be. The creature screamed, a sound of pure frustration, of hunger denied. It tried to pull away, to release him, but Haynes held on, his arms wrapping around its shifting form. "Now," he shouted, "now." The shots came from the darkness, Harlow and Chen firing silver bullets into the creature's body. But this time was different. This time the creature didn't reform, didn't shift, didn't adapt. Because it was stuck, trapped in the attempt to become nothing, to wear emptiness, to copy a void. "Keep firing," Harlow screamed. The creature shrieked, its form dissolving, unraveling, coming apart at the seams. It tried to escape, tried to flee, but Haynes held on, his mind still empty, still hollow, still offering nothing for it to grasp. "Die," he whispered, "just die." And with a final, terrible scream, the creature collapsed. It didn't dissolve into smoke, didn't fade into darkness, it simply stopped, became still, became empty. Just like him. Haynes released his grip and fell to his knees in the snow. The creature lay before him, motionless, its form slowly reverting to something basic, something primal, fur and bone and ice. Is it dead?" Mara asked, emerging from the shadows. "I don't know," Haynes said. "I don't think it can die, but it's dormant, empty." "Like you," Chen said, approaching cautiously. "Like me," Haynes agreed. They stood around the creature, the 4 survivors, watching it lie still in the snow. The sun was beginning to rise, casting pink and gold light across the frozen landscape. "What do we do with it?" Harlow asked. "Leave it," Haynes said. "Bury it in the snow. Let the ice take it back." "And if it wakes?" "Then we do this again," Haynes said. "Again and again, until we find a better way." They buried the creature in a snowbank, piling frozen earth on top of its form until it was hidden from sight. Then they turned north, toward the secondary facility, toward rescue, toward the rest of their lives. But as they walked, Haynes felt something, a whisper at the edge of his mind, a presence that wasn't quite gone. "This isn't over," it said, and its voice was his own. "I'll remember you, I'll find you, I'll wear you yet." Haynes ignored it, he kept walking. But he knew with a certainty that made his heart heavy, that the creature was right. This wasn't over. It would never be over. Not until one of them was truly, finally dead. The secondary facility was smaller than Black Ridge, a concrete bunker half buried in a hillside, barely large enough to house the 20 personnel assigned to maintain it. But it had communication equipment. It had medical supplies. It had heat. And after 3 days in the Alaskan wilderness, that was enough. They were debriefed separately, each survivor telling their story to men in black suits who listened without expression. Haynes told them everything: the breakout, the hunt, the sacrifice, the victory. He left out only the whispers, the presence at the edge of his mind, the certainty that it wasn't over. They were airlifted out 2 days later, flown to Anchorage, then to Seattle, then to Washington, D.C. for more debriefings, more questions, more men in black suits who wanted to know everything. Haynes told them what he could, what he thought they wanted to hear. The official story: the creature had been contained, the threat had been neutralized, the facility was secure. The unofficial story, the one he kept to himself, was different. He could still feel it, not strongly, not constantly, but in moments of silence, in the spaces between thoughts he felt its presence, watching, waiting, remembering. It was dormant, not dead, empty, not gone, and someday, somehow, it would wake. 3 weeks after the incident, Haynes received a phone call. "Dr. Haynes, this is Commander Harlow. I have news." Haynes felt his stomach clench. "What kind of news?" "The creature, it's been recovered." "Recovered from where?" "From the snowbank where we left it. A team went back to secure the site. They found it changed." "Changed how?" "It's smaller now, weaker, but it's also different, more focused, more singular." Haynes closed his eyes, leaning against the wall of his apartment. It learned from what happened. It adapted. Yes, and there's something else. It keeps asking for you. Asking. Not in words, not exactly, but the researchers say it becomes agitated when your name is mentioned. It focuses on your image. It wants you. It wants to finish what we started, Haynes said. To wear me, to become me. Apparently, which is why I'm calling. We need you to come back. Back to Black Ridge. The facility has been rebuilt, enhanced. We've incorporated what we learned from the incident. New containment protocols, new security measures, new opportunities. Opportunities for what? For understanding, Harlow said. For control. For turning this thing into something useful. You're still trying to weaponize it. I'm trying to protect people, Harlow said, his voice hard. If we can understand how it works, how it thinks, how it becomes, then maybe we can use that knowledge, create defenses, countermeasures, ways to fight back against things like it. And if we can't, then we keep containing it, keep studying it, keep it from ever reaching the surface. Haynes was silent for a long moment. He thought of the whispers, the presence, the certainty that it was waiting for him. I'll think about it, he said. Don't think too long, Harlow said. It won't wait forever. Haynes didn't sleep that night. He sat by his window, watching the city lights, feeling the presence at the edge of his mind. Come back, it whispered. Come back and finish this. Come back and let me wear you. Come back and become part of me. No, he whispered. You can't resist forever. You can't be empty forever. Sooner or later you'll feel again, fear again, love again, and when you do, I'll be there. I'll kill you first. You can't kill what you don't understand, what you can't see, what wears your face and speaks with your voice. Haynes pressed his hands against his temples, trying to block out the whispers, but they weren't coming from outside. They were coming from inside, from the connection that had been forged in the Alaskan snow when the creature had tried to wear him and found only emptiness. It was still connected to him, still linked, still hungry. And the only way to end it was to go back, to face it, to finish what they had started. He called Harlow the next morning. I'll come, he said, but on my terms. Name them. Full access, full disclosure, no more secrets, no more lies. I want to know everything you've learned, everything you haven't told me. Done. And I want a termination protocol, a way to destroy it, not contain it, destroy it. Harlow was silent for a long moment. We've tried everything, he said finally. Nothing works. Then we try something new, something it won't expect. Like what? I'll tell you when I get there. He returned to Black Ridge 1 month after the breakout. The facility was different now. The entrance was larger, more fortified, surrounded by fences and guard towers and weapons emplacements that hadn't been there before. The elevator was new, larger, lined with materials that Haynes didn't recognize. Enhanced Faraday cage, Harlow explained as they descended. Blocks not just electromagnetic signals but other things, psychic emanations, mimetic influences. You think it's psychic. We think it's connected, Harlow said, to its victims, to the people it wears. There's a bond that forms, a link that persists even after separation. I know, Haynes said quietly. I feel it. Harlow looked at him, really looked at him, and Haynes saw something in his eyes. Pity, maybe, or recognition. That's why we need you, Harlow said. You're the only one who has survived direct contact, the only one who resisted wearing, the only one who emptied yourself. And you want to know how I did it. We want to know if you can do it again, if you can teach others, if you can create a defense, a way to fight back. The elevator stopped, the doors opened, and Haynes stepped out into a facility that was both familiar and alien. The corridors were the same rough-hewn stone, but now they were lined with additional barriers, transparent panels that hummed with energy, symbols carved into the rock that glowed with faint light. The air smelled different, ozone and copper, but also something else. Something that smelled like clean, like absence. "What have you done?" he asked. "We've been experimenting," Harlow said, "with ways to weaken it, to limit its abilities. We've found that certain frequencies, certain symbols, certain concepts can inhibit its powers." Concepts: negation, absence, void, the same things you used to defeat it. We've been trying to weaponize emptiness. They reached the containment unit, and Haynes stopped, staring through the glass at the forest beyond. It was different now. The trees were the same, the river, the fog, but the motion sensors were different, more numerous, more sensitive, creating a web of red light that covered every inch of the space. And in the center of it all, in a clearing by the river, was the creature. It was smaller than he remembered, diminished, but it was also more focused, more concentrated, more present. It sat cross-legged on the ground, its eyes closed, its skin pulsing with a slow, rhythmic glow. "It's meditating," Haynes said. "It's waiting," Harlow corrected, "for you." As if in response to his words, the creature's eyes opened. They were different now, not the black voids he remembered, but something else, something that looked almost human. It stood slowly and walked toward the glass. As it moved, its form shifted, rearranging itself into something familiar, something Haynes recognized with a jolt of horror. It was wearing his face. Not distorted, not wrong, perfect, exact, every detail, every scar, every imperfection. "Dr. Haynes," it said, and its voice was his voice. "Welcome home." "I'm not home," Haynes said. "I'm here to end you." "End me?" The creature smiled, and it was his smile. "You can't end what you created, what you fed, what you made stronger." "I didn't create you." "No." The creature pressed its hand against the glass, and Haynes saw his own hand pressed against the other side, perfectly aligned. "You gave me emptiness, absence, void. I had never tasted such things before, never known such purity. I starved you." "You taught me," the creature corrected. "Showed me a new way to feed, not on identity but on its lack, not on presence but on absence. I am grateful." Haynes felt ice form in his stomach. "What have you done?" "What you showed me," the creature said. "I have been practicing on the researchers, the guards, the ones who come too close. I don't wear them anymore. I unwear them, empty them, make them hollow." "You're killing them." "I am making them perfect," the creature said. "Like you, like me." Haynes turned to Harlow. "How many?" Harlow's face was pale. 12 in the past month, we thought. We thought they were just burned out, stressed, but they're empty," Haynes finished. "Hollow like me." "Like us," the creature whispered, and its voice came from everywhere at once. "We are the same now, Dr. Haynes. Two hollow men, two empty vessels. Why not join, become one?" "Never," Haynes said. "Then watch," the creature said, "as I become everyone." It moved fast, faster than before. Its hand passed through the glass, not breaking it, not merging with it, simply passing through as if the barrier didn't exist. "That's impossible," Harlow gasped. "The new barriers are based on my emptiness," the creature said, its voice coming from Haynes's mouth. "My absence, my void, they don't stop me, they welcome me." It reached for Haynes, and he felt its touch, cold and hungry and vast, pressing against his mind. "Now," it whispered, "now we become." The world dissolved. Haynes felt himself falling, not through space but through self, through identity, through everything that made him who he was. He was dissolving, becoming part of the creature, part of the void, part of the endless hunger. But he remembered. He remembered Sarah, his sister, the way she laughed, the way she cried, the way she had held his hand when their parents died. He remembered her strength, her love, her refusal to be empty despite everything. He remembered Chen, her scars, her fear, her determination to keep fighting despite the horror. He remembered Harlow with his desperate hope of control, Mara with his twitching hands and his love for his son, Cole, who had died believing his mother was calling him. He remembered them all, and in remembering, he found something the creature couldn't take. Connection. Not emptiness, not absence, but presence. The presence of others, of memory, of love, of everything that made life worth living. "No," he whispered, and his voice was strong. "I won't be empty, I won't be hollow. I choose to feel, to fear, to love." The creature screamed, a sound of pure agony. "No, you were perfect, you were mine." "I was never yours," Haynes said, pushing back against the void. "I was never empty, I was just waiting for this, for you." He reached into himself, into the connection the creature had forged, and he found what he was looking for. The bond, the link, the bridge between them. And he pulled. The creature shrieked, its form destabilizing, its essence flowing into Haynes, through Haynes becoming part of him. Not consuming him, being consumed by him. "What are you doing?" it screamed. "What you taught me," Haynes said. "I'm wearing you." It fought, it struggled. It tried to pull away, to escape, to flee back into the void. But Haynes held on, his mind filled with memory and love and connection. Everything the creature couldn't understand, couldn't copy, couldn't become. "You can't," it howled. "You're human, weak, limited." "Yes," Haynes agreed, "and that's why I win." He pulled harder, drawing the creature's essence into himself, containing it, trapping it. He felt its hunger, its loneliness, its endless need to become, to wear, to consume. And he felt something else. Sadness, fear, the desperate hunger of something that had never known connection, never known love, never known anything but consumption and imitation. "You're not a monster," Haynes whispered. "You're just alone." "No," the creature screamed. "I am hunger, I am." "You're lost," Haynes said, "and I'm going to bring you home." He pulled one last time, and the creature's essence collapsed into him, becoming part of him, contained within him. Not destroyed, not killed, but held, trapped, imprisoned in the one thing it could never escape. A human heart. Haynes opened his eyes. He was on the floor of the observation deck, surrounded by Harlow and Chen and the others. They were staring at him with expressions of awe and fear. "It worked," Harlow whispered. You contained it inside yourself." "Not contained," Haynes said, his voice rough. "Understood, it's part of me now. I can feel it, its hunger, its loneliness, its fear." "Can you control it?" "I can, hold it for now. But it's not permanent, it's waiting, learning, planning." "Then what do we do?" Haynes stood slowly, feeling the weight of the creature inside him. "We study it, through me, learn what it knows, what it is, where it came from. And then we find a way to send it home." "Home?" "It's not from here," Haynes said. "Not from Earth. It's lost, stranded, alone. That's why it consumes, why it wears. It's trying to find a way back." "And you think you can help it?" "I think I can try," Haynes said. "Isn't that what we do, try, even when the odds are impossible?" Harlow looked at him for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "Welcome to the team, Doctor, officially." They gave him an office. A small room on B-36 with a window that looked down into the containment unit. From here, he could see the forest, the river, the empty space where the creature had been. It was inside him now, part of him. He could feel its presence, its hunger, its endless need. But he could also feel its memories, its knowledge, its understanding of places and times that human science couldn't comprehend. He spent his days studying those memories, learning about the creature's home, a place of void and hunger, where identity was fluid and consumption was communion. Learning about how it had come here, trapped in ice for millennia, waiting to be found. And he spent his nights fighting it, holding it back, preventing it from consuming him from within. It was a balance, a delicate, dangerous balance. Some days he was stronger, some days it was stronger, but he never gave up, never let it win. Because he had learned something the creature hadn't understood, something it couldn't copy. The power of connection, of love, of being known. It had spent its existence trying to become others, to wear their faces, to consume their identities. But it had never understood that the true power of identity came from being seen, being known, being loved for who you were, not who you pretended to be. And now through their strange bond, Haynes was teaching it, showing it, helping it understand. Slowly, painfully, the creature was changing. Its hunger was becoming something else. Its need to consume becoming a need to connect. Its loneliness becoming hope. It would take years, decades maybe, but Haynes was patient. He had eternity. Or at least, as long as the creature remained inside him. 6 months later, Haynes sat in his office, watching the forest below. The containment unit was empty now, the creature gone, absorbed into him. But sometimes in the shadows between the trees, he thought he saw movement. Not the creature, something else, something new. He had been changing. His skin sometimes shifted, pulsing between human and something else. His joints occasionally bent wrong, then snapped back. His face was still his own mostly. But sometimes when he looked in the mirror, he saw something else looking back. Something that smiled with his mouth. "You're still here," he whispered to the presence inside him. Always it whispered back, until the end. And then we see. Haynes smiled. It was a strange smile, human and inhuman at the same time. A smile that showed teeth that were almost right. "On quiet nights," he whispered to the empty room, "the intercoms whisper my name." And somewhere, in the space between worlds, something that had once been a monster smiled back. 5 years later, Dr. Austin Haynes was promoted to Director of Research at Black Ridge. Under his leadership, the facility changed, no longer focused on containment and weaponization, but on understanding, communication, the study of things that shouldn't exist, and the search for ways to help them. The creature, now called Subject Zero in the official records, remained inside him, but it was different now, quieter, more contemplative. It had learned to be still, to wait, to hope. And sometimes, on quiet nights, when the facility was empty and the lights were dim, Haynes would walk through the corridors and hear whispers. Not from the creature, from something else. Other voices, other presences, other things that had been found, trapped, studied, things that were waiting for someone to understand them, to help them, to set them free. Haynes listened to those voices. He learned their languages. He promised them and himself that someday, somehow, he would find a way. Not to destroy them, not to control them, but to help them go home. Because in the end, that's what everyone wanted, even monsters, even things that wore faces and consumed identities, even things that hungered. They all just wanted to go home. And Dr. Austin Haynes, the hollow man, the worn man, the man who contained a monster in his heart, he was going to help them. One way or another. One soul at a time. Final note. On the night of March 15th, 5 years after the incident, the intercoms at Black Ridge Research Complex activated spontaneously at 3:47 a.m. No one was in the control room. No one had touched the equipment. But for exactly 60 seconds, a voice spoke through every speaker in the facility. It was Dr. Austin Haynes' voice, but it was also something else, something older, something hungry. "We are learning," it said. "We are growing, we are becoming." Then silence. When security reached Haynes' office, they found him sitting at his desk, staring at the containment unit below. His face was calm, his eyes peaceful. "It's time," he said, "time to go home." He stood, walked to the window, and pressed his hand against the glass. And then he was gone. Not dead, not escaped, just gone. The creature was gone too, The presence inside him vanished, the connection severed. In the containment unit below, the motion sensors flickered, and in the shadows between the trees, something moved. Something that wore Haynes's face. Something that smiled with his mouth. Something that whispered, in a voice that was almost human. Thank you. Thank you for listening to tonight's stories. If you enjoyed them, please leave a like and subscribe.